Thank you very much. I'd like to call the Lakewood City Council meeting of Monday, May 4th, 2026 to order. Ms. Atkins, could you please give the roll call?
Councilmember Branstetter.
Here.
Councilmember Laura Sella. Councilmember Lindholm.
Present.
Councilmember Pearson.
Here.
Councilmember Talbot.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bell.
Here.
And Mayor Boki. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Ms. Atkins, and we'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here tonight on this beautiful evening in Lakewood. And the first item of business is a proclamation recognizing May 2026 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I think Ms. Lua Pritchard is here, and we were going to have Councilmember Talbot read the proclamation.
All right, thank you. Whereas in May, we take time to reflect on and call special attention to the achievements and contributions of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders in our community, our state, and our country. And whereas in 1978, Congress created Asian Pacific American Heritage Week in May to coincide with two milestones in Asian Pacific American history: the arrival of the first Japanese immigrants on May 7th, 1843 in the United States, and Chinese workers' role in building the Transcontinental Railroad, completed May 10th, 1869. And whereas Lakewood's connection to the Asian community goes back decades, from welcoming immigrants to the area as they arrived alongside service members stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord, to supporting business development and expansion endeavors within the city, and celebrating the many cultures, customs, and heritage of the kaleidoscope of countries from the Asian continent and Pacific Islands represented in our community. And whereas Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders comprise nearly 12% of the city's population, according to the 2020 census, and nationally are some of the fastest growing racial and ethnic groups. And whereas Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders are some of our most devoted community members who serve as leaders in our military and in law enforcement, as experts in the fields of science, medicine, and technology, as teachers, as distinguished lawyers, as innovative farmers, as business owners, as nonprofit executives, and as leaders within their community and beyond. Now, therefore, the Lakewood City Council hereby proclaims May 2026 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the city of Lakewood, and encourages all residents to recognize the vital role Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders play in our community, and urges residents to visit the Asian Pacific Cultural Center to learn more about their programs and commitment to bridge communities and generations through art, culture, education, and business, proclaimed this 4th day of May 2026. And as the first Asian American, Filipino American council member for the city of Lakewood, it is my pleasure and honor and privilege to now introduce Failua Lana Pritchard, Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Cultural Center, and hand this proclamation. And thank you so, so much for those who know Lua and know that she is a pillar in the community. It is my esteemed pleasure and honor. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Boki,
respected members of the council, we want to thank you so much for this great honor. We are really, really, really blessed. And City of Lakewood has been my home for 36 years now. And the Pritchards have been here as a pioneer Samoan family in the state of Washington, living in the city of Lakewood. And there's so many of us like behind me today, but we would love it if there are some of us who want to say something in honor of all of you today. And now we have our older brother and uncle, Art Wong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Art Wong. I'm a former state representative and judge on the Court of Appeals and state agency director, but I'm here today on behalf of the Asian Pacific Cultural Center as an advisory board member. I've been on that since virtually the beginning of the Asian Pacific Cultural Center. I have a confession, and that is that I'm somewhat jaded when it comes to all the proclamations and things, and sometimes they sound a little trivial and stuff. Let me tell you, this one is important. I know that sometimes when you're doing proclamations, all elected officials have to do proclamations, and sometimes they get to be like fluff. This one is not. This one is important because, particularly with our times these days, we are struggling with the variety of circumstances, and it's just important to recognize May as Asian Heritage Month. And so we appreciate your job in doing this, and thank you very much.
And we have our sister Alice Fong.
Clap for myself. Hi, thank you so much for putting this proclamation together and honoring the Asian Pacific, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. My name is Alice, and I am a resident here in Lakewood, and I'm very proud of our city that we are honoring this. And especially right before this meeting, we had our youth council here, and it really shows our youth, our next generation of leaders, what it is to be inclusive and welcoming and having a healthy, safe community. And we can't do that without your support and working together with community to make that happen. And so I just got off the call from chairing our Pierce County Refugee and Immigrant Affairs. And that was the same thing that we're talking about, is how do we work together with our leadership so that we create that healthy, happy, safe environment. And I think community, and I think that is what all of you are doing. And I want to thank you for that, for making it so that our young people see this, for modeling it, and working with organizations and leaders like Lua and the Asia Pacific Cultural Center that brings these events here in Lakewood so that our neighbors can connect with each other. And a shout out to Lakewood's Promise Advisory Board that I am a part of, and what that is also working with you to do that work. So thank you so much for all of that.
And now our sister Tuet Nguyen.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member, and community leader. As a long-time resident of Lakewood, I truly feel grateful to call this community my home. This year also make 30 years since the Lakewood become a city, and I was a part of it. So on behalf of our AAPI community and alongside with Asia Pacific Culture Center, I am very honored to be here with our sister and brother to this honored recognition. It also it celebrates not only our culture heritage, but also the resilience and contribution of so family who call Lakewood home. We sincere thanks the City of Lakewood for your continued support and commitment to diversity and inclusion. Together, we will keep building a stronger, connected, and more compassionate community. Thank you so much.
And very proud to invite all of you to go online to Asia Pacific Culture Center and find out how every day of this month will be active with all kinds of Asians and Pacific Islanders activities. So we're filled it, we're in government, we're inside of different organizations, we're in schools, and then we're also over at our own building. So, and we're in public. So, and Lakewood, City of Lakewood, we're always very proud that you always support our programs. So thank you on behalf of all Asians and all Pacific Islanders of this state and this city of Lakewood. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. So we're all going to come down here and take a picture. It's great. Thank you very much. Next is the proclamation recognizing May 3rd, 2026 through May 9th, 2026 as Water Week. And Council Member, Lindholm is on his way down to, and could we have two commissioners here tonight, Mr. Gary Barton, Mr. Greg Radisky, and I believe you're the new general manager, Mr. Marshall Meyer. Welcome.
Whereas water is our most valuable natural resource, and whereas drinking water serves as a vital role in daily life, serving an essential purpose to health, hydration, and hygiene needs for the quality of life our residents enjoy, and whereas tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. And whereas the hard work performed by the entire water sector, designing capital projects, operators ensuring the safety and quality of drinking water, or a member of a pipe crew maintaining the infrastructure communities rely on to transport high-quality drinking water from its source to consumers' taps. And whereas we are all stewards of the water infrastructure upon which current and future generations depend, and whereas the residents of the City of Lakewood are called upon to help protect our source waters from pollution, practice water conservation, and get involved with their water by familiarizing themselves with it. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Lakewood, the Lakewood City Council hereby proclaims May 3rd, 2026 through May 9th, 2026 as Drinking Water Week in the City of Lakewood, and urges all residents to observe the week with activities to enhance awareness about drinking water and the benefits of drinking water. Proclaim this 4th day of May. I am a huge fan of water. I drink it every day. I'm really thankful that we have our water district here. I've been to these meetings. These gentlemen work very hard. They don't get enough praise. So thank you for coming.
Mayor Paul Boki, City Council, and of course, citizens of Lakewood. I just want to say thank you for this proclamation. Water, without water, we don't have a community. And that's the bottom line. I just want to say thank you for the staff at the Lakewood Water District. They work very hard, 7/27, to make sure that you have clean, reliable water. I also would like to thank the city staff who work with us on various capital projects to maintain the water infrastructure. And with that cooperation, we have always been extremely successful. And so thank you so much for your cooperation and the community for entrusting us to serve you clean, reliable water. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to echo the thank you. So thank you, Mayor and council members, for this proclamation of Drinking Water Week. Throughout history, access to clean water has been key to a successful and healthy community. As the city works towards its goal of providing more housing, supporting a growing, thriving community, the importance of access to clean, reliable, and affordable drinking water has never been more important. In 2025, Lakewood residents used over 7.5 million gallons a day of water for their drinking, sanitation, recreation, irrigation, fire protection, and business needs. Now, the World Health Organization estimates that around the world, 2 billion people do not have access to clean, safe drinking water. Fortunately, of course, the residents of Lakewood do have access to that, and in large part to the efforts of our dedicated staff who work tirelessly at operating, maintaining, repairing, and testing the water system that our city residents rely on. So I also want to thank the city of Lakewood for its continued partnership in support in meeting our mission at the district of serving healthy communities through responsible water practices. So thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna take a picture down here, but I do want to say, and you've both made mention of it, of a very good working relationship when we're doing putting a lot of these streets in, that you're right there to put new water mains in. So the thing, because there are very few things people hate more than seeing a road torn up. Hey, it could have been 10 years ago when we put it in, but they'll say hey, you just put that road in. And it's great, the level of cooperation and the things that we've done. And I think a lot of municipalities wish they had the cooperation that we've had on all those projects. So thank you very much. Huh? Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask Chief Patrick Smith to come on down, and I am going to read the proclamation for National Police Week. Thank you very much, Chief Smith. Glad you're here. Whereas each May during the week surrounding May 15th, our nation salutes the American men and women who put their lives on the line every day to maintain public safety and hold accountable those who break the law. Whereas there are more than 750,000 sworn law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including 100 dedicated members of the Lakewood Police Department. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have been killed on the line of duty, including 4 members of the Lakewood Police Department in 2009. Whereas with heavy hearts, we mourn the heroes taken from us only because they chose to serve, and we rededicate ourselves to carrying their noble legacy. And whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lakewood City Council officially recognizes May 11th through May 16th, 2026 as National Police Week in the city of Lakewood and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. Proclaim this day, the 4th of May, 2026. Chief, please come up and give us a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. Actually, I'm very thankful that you do this every year to recognize those who have basically paid the ultimate sacrifice. Throughout my career, I can go to the National Mall and see several names of people that I've known, some that I've worked with, some who were very good friends. And to have this opportunity to honor them, their memory, their legacy, who they are, what they represented, and what they offered to the community each year is absolutely amazing. So I'm very thankful. Each year, the city of Lakewood, or the past few years, the City of Lakewood Police Department, we send 4 or 5 of our officers to participate in the Police Unity Tour. That's a 300-mile ride on their bicycles, doing 75 to 100 miles per day, riding to meet the group there at the police memorial. And I lend those officers whatever support we possibly can to make sure that they're there to represent our officers and our fallen in our city each year. And so I'm very proud of them. So I just want to say thank you so much for all of the officers, for the proclamation and what it represents and what it means to us, specifically those who knew some of the officers or our officers here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is we're recognizing May 17th through May 23rd as Public Works Week. And this covers another big swath of territory. Councilmember Pearson is with Jeff Remack, our Director of the City of Lakewood Planning and Public Works Department, and we'll present the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a good timing for Public Works Week as we've just wrapped up some projects, so we don't have too many complaints right now. So what spectacular timing. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Lakewood. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our residents. And whereas it is in the public interest for residents, civic leaders, and children in the city of Lakewood to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2026 marks the 66th annual National Public Works Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lakewood City Council hereby proclaim May 17th, 2026 through May 23rd, 2026 as Public Works Week in the city of Lakewood, and urges all residents to participate in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health and safety and advancing quality of life for all residents. Proclaimed this 4th day of May, 2026.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council. I appreciate this recognition for Public Works and what we're looking at, but really I'm just here to accept it on behalf of the staff. Really, it's the professionals that work behind the scenes that really make things go, from operations at M&O and what we look at when it comes to engineering and then our capital projects. So those projects we see out there and the rapid improvements that we've seen over all of our streets and streetscapes and things of that nature, really it falls down to them. So thank you to all of them, and thank you for giving them the recognition for what they do.
All right, next up, thank you very much for all that. Next up is the Youth Council report. And I'm going to call up the Youth Council members, but we don't have names today. So please state your name clearly for the record. This will go out on YouTube. Millions of people will hear your name. So we're all listening clearly.
Good evening, Mayor Boki, Deputy Mayor Bell, and Council. I am Irie Henkel, and I'm currently a junior at Harrison Preparatory. And this year I served as Vice Chair on Lakewood City Youth Council, and I was just elected Chair for next year. We are pleased to announce we had a great turnout at the Youth Summit this year, with 28 vendors and 121 attendees. We were privileged to have Dr. John Gaines as a keynote speaker. Students reported thoroughly enjoying everything that he had to say and how he said it. Dr. Gaines has also voiced interest in being involved in Youth Council and Youth Summit in future years. Besides that, the most popular activities were the coffee truck and Kona Ice, for which we gave students one free drink ticket, the video game setup in the vendors area, the swag bags given to students at check-in, and the Parents Cafe, which was extremely successful, especially considering that it was our first year having it. Additionally, the Naughty Knitters were quite popular with students, as well as the 19 student-led skill stations, two of the most popular being financial fitness and stress management. Finally, the new location, Pierce College rather than Harrison Prep, was positively received, and the free direct transportation through Pierce Transit was incredibly successful, providing far more students access to the event. We are pleased and excited for future years. And as we wrap up this year, we plan to celebrate with an end-of-year party on Monday, May 18th from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at Fort Steilacoom Park. It will be a potluck, and we will do a few team-building activities, such as a water gun fight and other games and face painting. Additionally, we will award prizes to the Youth Council members that brought the highest number of attendees to the Youth Summit. We invite you all to join us and in the festivities and team building activities. Thank you, and now I'll hand it over to Renita to discuss the current election process. Thank you.
Thank you, Irie. My name is Renita Benavente. I'm a senior and I currently attend Clover Park High School. As the 2025 and 2026 Lakewood Youth Council comes to an end, it is time to decide a new executive board for the 2026-27 Lakewood Youth Council. Currently, I'm working with Elijah, our current chair of Youth Council, to conduct interviews with potential candidates. Candidates were asked about their initiative, authority, time management, and creativity skills. With these interviews, we envisioned a voting process to be 40 to 60 voting. 40% to Elijah and I based off the interview scores, then 60% to the groups voting. Once voting is completed, the new board will be led through Executive Board 101 training, where they will be trained on how to write proper agendas, document meeting minutes, lead big groups, project management skills, and gain insight to youth council-sponsored events, such as Youth Summit. We will also teach them how to properly make points to present to council. Thank you so much for your time. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Thank you very much, and great numbers from the Youth Summit. I think 121 is a nice number, and it's always great to give out free food as part of the deal to get people in, but whatever works. Does anybody have any questions? Councilmember Ranstetter.
Yes, thank you. And I would echo that. It sounds like the Youth Summit was very successful. In past years, the Youth Summit has usually taken place closer to the end of the school year rather than in April. So what did the planning for this obviously had to be accelerated to finish earlier, but did you find that was an advantage to getting attendance of students and being able to do that? Is that something you plan to consider scheduling it that earlier in future years?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think planning this earlier in the year and not closer to like graduation and the end of school year really boosted our attendance because people are guaranteed to still be in the city and like still be here to attend Youth Summit. What was the other part? Okay, yeah. Also during like the months of May, we also have graduation, we have graduation for a couple schools as well as prom. And that would have just been like a factor of getting in the way of hosting Youth Summit.
Okay. And at the beginning of this year, one of the questions that we asked, and I think we were told was going to be something that would be looked at, is over the past 4 years, we have seen a growth in the number of young people that have stepped forward to be on the youth council. And the question was, how large is too large? Or do you anticipate just continuing in that regard and feel that that is the is healthy and good for the community, even if it may be stressful for Shannon?
I think that is a better, so thank you very much, unless we have other questions. Thank you very much, and we're going to bring Ms. Bennett up to kind of answer that if you feel you can, and then we'll go on. That's a good segue into the next thing. So thank you very much. Yes, please, if you can answer the Councilmember Brandt, or you didn't get that in advance, so it's maybe not fair to put you on the spot
right,
like this, and then we'll
right.
just segue into the
Yeah,
next item.
we will figure out a way to work with the current ordinance as it is written, unless council tells us to look at it at another time, and that would be for future discussion. But the leadership team, they are aware of it. They're already thinking of solutions on how we can involve more students in the giving of the opinions and the activities, and to make it a more inclusive group.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, you have one? A quick. Councilmember Lauricelle has a question, then we need to move on to the next item.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Boki. Or Mayor Boki. Just real quick, you mentioned this end of year event that you're holding at Fort Slocum Park. Can we get a refresher on the date and time for that?
It is May 18th from 4:30 to 6:30 out at Shelter 1.
Perfect.
Yes, I sent the information to Brianna.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then just a comment, I really appreciate that our youth council is going through board member 101 training. There's a number of boards that I serve on that could benefit from similar education. So that's really important stuff. So thank
As much as I would like to take any sort of credit for that, that was not me. That was that was Renita and Elijah. And that is one of the benefits. I have been trying to release control over the past 2 years. This year, I really did it. I stepped back. I gave the students the directive to, this is your council. You have autonomy here. And I want you to take pride in this youth council and feel that it's yours. So it was all them.
That's awesome. It's a critical skill that a lot of folks don't necessarily have, and puts our youth council steps ahead of other folks. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Ms. Bennett. Community collaboration updates. So you're just going to give us an update and
Very brief. Yes, and I have my co-facilitator here. So good evening, Mayor Boki, Deputy Mayor Bell, and council members. As you know, my name is Shannon Bennett. I am the Human Services Coordinator here. In addition to leading this amazing group of youth, I also am the facilitator for our community collaboration group, which a couple of you have attended. Tonight's is just a briefing. So the collaboration for new members, the collaboration began in the late 1990s through a partnership between community member Annie Gernon and former Mayor Claudia Thomas. They were inspired by Colin Powell's America Promise initiative, and it has grown into a cross-sector network of youth-serving organizations, colleges, nonprofits, city staff, human service providers, faith communities, Pierce County departments, and the Clover Park School District. In my role, I help support and coordinate this network, keeping communication flowing, elevating needs to the city, and helping partners connect resources across systems. We meet monthly to identify emerging issues, share what partners are seeing on the ground, and align services. These conversations often lead to quick coordination and real-time problem solving. We typically have about 27 participants joining in person and online, and recently we've seen increased engagement from the faith community, with new pastors from 3 churches joining to connect. Hosting meetings at partner sites has strengthened understanding across sectors and often sparks immediate connections that lead to meaningful results for residents. One key focus right now is improving the community resource hub. Residents want a more equitable, user-friendly resource, mobile-friendly for youth and digital users, and simple, clear navigation for seniors and others who preferred straightforward access. And with that overview, I'll turn it over to my co-facilitator, Daniel Birdsell with the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, to walk through next steps and share how we hope to engage council moving forward.
Thank you, Shannon, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. My name is Daniel Birdsall, and I'm with the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department. I serve as a liaison for our Communities of Focus program and co-facilitate the Lakewood Community Collaboration. Many people know the Health Department for services like vaccines, food inspections, and vital records, but we also lead a place-based health equity initiative called Communities of Focus. Through this work, we've identified 6 areas across the county that could benefit from additional support, one of those being the Springbrook neighborhood here in Lakewood. My role is to help strengthen partnerships, increase investment, expand opportunities for civic engagement, and ensure strong two-way communication between the community and public health leadership. At its core, this work is rooted in a simple belief. When communities have the opportunity to come together, share ideas, and shape their future, health outcomes improve. That belief is what drives our partnership with the Lakewood Community Collaboration. I also want to take a moment to thank this council, past and present, as well as city staff for your continued commitment to partnership. I work with coalitions across the county, and it's rare to see something as longstanding and consistent as the Lakewood Collaboration. What Shannon shared has been active since the late 1990s. That's incredible. That kind of longevity speaks volumes. Lakewood clearly values collaboration, and it shows. Through this work, I've had the privilege of meeting people who are deeply committed to this community, their ideas, their challenges, and their vision for Lakewood. One person I'd like to share it with you is Stephen Dilworth behind me. He's a newer partner and pastor at the United Methodist Church in Lakewood. When he arrived, he took time to understand the community, who he was already doing the work, what resources existed, and where the gaps were. Recently, his church received donations of gently used clothing and planned a small pop-up boutique along the Lakewood Food Bank operated by Nourish Pierce County. Just a simple effort with what they had available. But when they shared this idea with the collaboration, others stepped in. Additional resources came forward, including a large donation of brand new clothing. What started small quickly grew into the 2-day event that filled their fellowship hall, serving more than 80 families with support from 17 volunteers and a scout troop. This is the power of collaboration in action, turning a simple idea into meaningful impact for the Lakewood community. You're always welcome to see this work firsthand. A couple of you have been to our meetings. Our monthly collaboration meetings are open, and we'd be glad to have you join us. Lastly, we'd love your guidance. How would you prefer to receive updates and stay connected to the work of the Lakewood Community Collaboration? Thank you for your time.
Any other speakers?
Happy to take any questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the folks? Okay, so thank you very much, and
Thank you.
oh, Councilmember Branstetter.
Well, so certainly, thank you for being here and reminding and emphasizing to us the effectiveness of collaboration and of that the value to the city of encouraging it to continue and grow, to be able to go and do that. And Mr. Mayor, I think that you know that perhaps at a future meeting, this council might discuss ways that we can greater leverage the strengths of this collaboration to be able to go and do that. Because I think it's significant that they have asked for areas that we are interested in their input, or that we would like them to look into, that we think collaboration could help. And so I think we owe them some feedback after we have had a chance to think about it ourselves and be able to go and do that. Because although they're not an advisory committee to the council, they are a active resource for the community. And that's something that I think that we should take advantage of in our work.
Thank you, Councilmember Branstetter, and we will do that. Councilmember Lauricelle.
Thank you, Mayor Boki, and thanks to this group. I've had the opportunity to participate in several of the meetings that you held here in council chambers, and every time I attend, I am blown away by the level of participation that we get from our community members. It's really a venue for people who want to make Lakewood better and healthier and more vibrant and really care about our community. And It doesn't have the same sort of structure as our formal boards, but I think that can be an advantage because it really allows people to self-select because they really care, and it has the fluidity that you get from that sort of environment. So thank you all for your
Thank you.
participation in that.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members. Are there any other questions? Everybody's running off. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your presentation tonight. So next we move into public comments. Public comments are accepted by mail, email, or by live, virtual, or in-person comment. Send comments in advance by mail or email to Brianna Schumacher, City 6000 Main Street Southwest, Lakewood, Washington 98499, or bschumacher@cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to 1 hour before the meeting have been provided to the City Council electronically. The clerk will read the names of those who have submitted comments in advance. Ms. Atkins, did we get any advance comments tonight?
We did not, Mayor Boki.
Thank you very much. There is a public hearing later this evening on the 2026 carry forward budget adjustment. So if you would like to speak specifically to this topic, and there are a number of budget adjustments in 2026 that we're making, please do so under the public hearing portion of the agenda. So it's specifically in that, so we can get it on the record. Members of the audience may comment on items relating to any matter related to city business under the public comments period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Virtual comments. If you'd like to provide live virtual public comments, you will need to join the Zoom meeting as an attendee by calling on telephone dial 1-253-215-8782 and enter meeting ID 868-7263-2373, or visit zoom.us and enter meeting ID 868-7263-2373. Upon entering the meeting, please enter your name. Use the raise hand feature to be called upon, and for those participating by calling in by telephone to use the raise hand feature, press *9 on your phone. When you are unmuted, please provide your name and city of residence. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Outside of public comments, all attendees on Zoom will continue to have the ability to virtually raise their hand. For the duration of the meeting, you will not be acknowledged and your microphone will remain muted except for when you are called upon. So we're going to call tonight first on in-person, and I do have a list here. I think a number of the names were tied to one of the proclamations. So I'm going to move down the list to Jean Okay. Okay. Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Jean Conkeezer. I live at 8824 Eagle Point Loop, and I'm part of Eagle Point HOA. And, oh, let me start over. Oh, all right. I just by way of introduction to y'all, I moved to Eagle Point about 7.5 years ago. My husband and I are the Brady Bunch, second half of life. And my first husband passed, and then we met through public, how am I telling him that? Anyway, we met and we've gotten married and we moved here. And on about our 6th date, we were on Eagle Point or on the lake. And I said, where would you like to live? And he said, I'd like to live here. And if that's ever possible, you can afford it, we would move to Eagle Point or in around American Lake. We've had a great experience. We have 12 grown children, 6 married to 6. We have 7 grandchildren. And with that, I'm on the Eagle Point HOA, and it's been a privilege. I also was part of the movement to see the petitions put in your hands. We've gotten over 150 names and signatures, but it's still growing. They're still coming in. You're going to get another surge. And I got to see the movement around the lake of people actually going door to door, walking the streets, talking to their neighbors, passing that petition on down the line and asking when we're going to have another meeting. So the movement is still there, and we're here just to report into you and actually let you know how we're doing. One thing that I have become more and more aware of in the last 6 months, I didn't know anything about the water in the lake. We were trying to figure out the lake water level at the beginning of this in October, and became knowledgeable of what was wrong with the lake, why the level was so low, and then became knowledgeable about water quality. And one of my little stories in this, among many, is I was over at Office Depot going to print something for all the people we've distributed information to. And actually, you've gotten participate in that. The assistant manager at the Office Depot got to talking to me. I'm kind of on first name basis on a lot of the places here in Lakewood. And he says, why do you keep coming in here and buying ink? And he said, what are you doing now? And I said, well, believe it or not, I said, I don't know what you know about American Lake, but we're on a mission initiative to see the water quality change and the level of the lake to go up. And had no other people in the store, customers, and he says, I used to ski and I learned to swim actually in the lake. He said, I will never go in the lake. I'm about 48 years old. He said, the lake is polluted. And I was not shocked by that because much of the study I have studied, I see the word pollution. So what I gave you tonight is a picture of the way it looked 4 years ago and the way it looks today. So when we moved there, it looked like this the first 3 years we were there. And this is what we woke up into the morning. This is on our beachfront, one of our shorelines. And this is what it looks like today. And my only thought to you is, would you want your children, your grandchildren to swim in that? Do you realize the diseases or the safety and the risk factor of having a lake like this and you can't use it? You should have gotten a copy of this. And so basically, I'm just here to remind you, we're still here and we're still in the movement stage of seeing this progress. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Was it that Bing, what we're using now? Okay, thank you. I missed that. Okay, next up is Mr. Joel Barana. Yeah, there you go.
Simple. And thank you for hearing me again. You know, I don't want to be here. You don't want me here. Same story, because the story hasn't changed. About a year ago, we started investigating what it would take to be able to more effectively treat American Lake. And I've never run across so many obstacles in my entire life, mostly because this is new to you folks to some extent, I think, and you're not sure what to do with it. So we had so much misdirection on where to go to get this process started that it was really frustrating for us. The ALMD, quite honestly, is broken. They meet every quarter. We get to talk for 3 minutes, just like we do here. We hear nothing else. We get very little responses. Thank God you have a great city attorney who actually returns a call and can explain things in ways that make more sense. I don't always like what she says, but it is good. I will tell you that we've gone through every department that the city has sent us to. The Department of Ecology, we're good. DNR, we're good. Fish and Wildlife, we're good. BLM, we're good. Corps of Engineers, they all say, you're good with everything. You've already got your permit. All you need is the council's approval to put down additional chemicals. And so now we're being told that we need an RFP. And I will tell you this. If Ms. Walker can show me one RFP out of the thousands you've had to deal with that says, we will pay for the treatment, we will contract the people, we will monitor it, we will take the liability, we will do every single thing at no cost to the city. If you can show me one of those, then I will be quiet and I'll do an RFP. But I don't think that is what an RFP is for. I think that's all that you have. And so you're trying to shove this square peg into a round hole, but it doesn't fit. This hand does not fit that glove. So what we really need to do is have a working meeting with the ALMD where we can sit down and look at short-term, mid-range, long-term goals. What can we do to make this a better lake? It's great that you said that our water is our most precious natural resource today, but we're not treating American Lake like that. We put millions and millions into parks, but the lake itself is suffering. The pollutants in there are terrible. Right now, we have 64 parts per billion right outside my front door, and the state says over 20 parts per billion is actionable and needs to have something done. And we're saying, maybe you should talk to ecology again. This is not an acceptable process. And I will be here banging on your door every 2 weeks until we can get something put together
that can make sense and give us a direction that we can follow. We'll do the heavy lifting. We'll do the work. Help us help you.
Thank you, Mr. Rona. So I have Glenda, and I can't pronounce the last name. I think, was she here for the Asia Pacific thing? Okay. And then I also have Stephen Dilworth. He was here earlier, and I think he was here for the presentation. So Mr. Bryce, come on down. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. My name is Paul Bryce, 20-plus year resident of Lakewood. I'd like to start off by saying, since the legalization and even before, it's been studied and well-known, 0 people have died from cannabis overuse. Right now, we have rescheduling happening out of the 50 states. If you guys don't know, Idaho is the only state left that doesn't have some form of legalization or medical going on. You know, trying to really figure out who we think we're really protecting here. Like adults 21 and older are the only ones that are allowed in these stores. You know, the big corporations with the rescheduling, the Safeways and Costco's and Walgreens, where it will go next some years down the road, where the kids are going to be able to go inside, walk across it. Right now, it's set up to where no kids are allowed in none of these stores. Again, not sure what we're protecting here. For adults, you're vegetarian, you don't want to eat meat, and go down the meat aisle, don't buy it. You don't want a McDonald's, fast food, sugar, walk past it. You know, roughly 2 stores in Lakewood. It's kind of easy to assume it'd probably do about 1.5 million monthly sales. Each average customer spending about $40. That's roughly about 37,000 people monthly that's buying marijuana throughout this west side of Pierce County that would venture into these stores. The amount of gas stations, restaurants, corner stores that would benefit from people shopping, spending their money into Lakewood almost seems negligent not to be looking at that. Like, you know, really no different from liquor. Take liquor away from Safeway, take liquor away from Walgreens and all those. Everyone's gonna go outside the city. They're gonna go to all the restaurants, they're gonna shop everywhere else, all the gas stations, everything else. Not protecting anyone here. For all the people that say, oh, smells like pot. Well, there's not a single adult in Lakewood that smokes pot that ain't already smoking pot here in Lakewood. They ain't going to Tacoma to buy the pot to then smoke it in Tacoma because it's not allowed here in Lakewood. Like, don't know who we're protecting here. It's just the sensible, not to mention all the perks as far as some employment and, you know, it is medical, social equity, a lot of other things, reasons to get behind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bryce. So that's all the folks who signed up. Dr. Marjolili, we have you on the public hearing for the budget. Do you mean to speak to that, or you'd like to speak? You can speak later on the budget if you'd like, but you certainly.
That and also
Okay.
others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've
Sure.
got 3 minutes.
Good evening to all of you. My name is Ibrahim Mir Jalili. I'm a resident of the city of Lakewood. Regarding the budget, I thought that I mentioned that the last poll that was done by Civic Science in January 2026, they found that 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. The year before, that number was 67%. The year prior to that was 4% less. And the country is in debt for $38 trillion, $39 trillion. So the government is broke, so are the people. And that brings me to the next, that first, please use the fund that you have through a leaner city, not meaner, and also more efficient, but not wasteful. Speaking of wastefulness, I need to bring the issue of the war with my motherland. Everybody agrees that was illegal, was wrong, but some obviously they disagree. And I ask this council to condemn that. I still ask you to do that. I do condemn it because those kids were innocent. Whoever was responsible should be brought to justice. And the reason I say that, because this is not, it doesn't start with them. Let me go back, please. In 1979, there was a girl born in Olympia, Washington. Her name was Rachel Corrie. She was crushed to her death with a bulldozer in 2003. Her parents in 2005 asked the regime that was responsible for it to have a hearing on that. In 2012, the judge with the name Oed Gershon of Haifa Court ruled that basically she was regrettable, her death was regrettable while blaming Rachel for her own death. If that would have stopped there, this would not happen today. I mean, on February 28th. So we need to have, these cities are like the root of the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
I appreciate it.
Next up, and I can't read the name, Mars. Oh, okay. You can do public comment. We're not doing the budget one. That's later. So you can do public comment. You got 3 minutes.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and members of Lakewood City Council. My name is Mary Chris Castro, a proud graduate of St. Francis Cabrini Catholic School and a child of this community in that way. My grandparents built their American dream right here in Lakewood. Dr. Expedita Castro and attorney Jesse Castro, a World War II veteran, succeeded here and then gave back, building a hospital and a school in the Philippines so that others could rise. Service here and service abroad. That is the Filipino way. My Lola, my grandmother, taught me malasakit, care in action. My grandparents lived by anihan, which means collective uplift of our community. And at the heart of all this is our Filipino value of kapwa, the truth that we are bound to one another. Those values took root here in Lakewood and in me. Growing up, I actually never saw an elected Filipino leader in our region. Sorry. And I know what that absence costs. As a mental health program manager at the Asia Pacific Cultural Center, I see it in our youth every day. Young people searching for proof that they belong, that they matter, and that there's a place for them in these rooms where decisions are being made. Representation is not symbolic, it is medicine. So it is a deep honor to witness Councilmember Ellen Talbo's historic election as the first Filipina on this council, and honestly in the South Sound region. And to also see the immediate past chair, Elijah, leading the Youth Council with vision and heart during this last summit. When our youth see faces like theirs in leadership, something shifts. They stop asking if they belong and start imagining how they will lead. That is the power of this moment. This year's AA and HPI theme is Power and Unity, Strengthening Communities Together. That is Kapwa in action. And as a Commissioner for Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, I carry this work forward every day in building belonging, building bridges, and building community. Thank you so much for recognizing us. Tayo ay iisa sa puso, sa diwa, at sa pagkilos. We are one in heart, in spirit, and in action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castro. Hey, that's everybody who signed up. And so just line up and you got 3 minutes to speak. Mr. Dunlop.
Hello, my name is James Dunlop and I'm a Lakewood resident.
So we have just had an anniversary. May the 1st was the 6th anniversary of the shooting of Saeed Wakim by a Lakewood police officer. And as a result of that shooting, I believe the family of Saeed Wakim was awarded, I think it was $8 million against the city of Lakewood. And I'm afraid it's another anniversary as well, because we're just coming up. May the 23rd is going to be the 13th anniversary of the shooting of Leonard Thomas by an officer of the Lakewood police. And as a result of the shooting of Leonard Thomas, there was a civil action against Lakewood and the officers involved. I think also the city of Fife was involved, and it was a multi-million-dollar award. And this is a thing that really I don't understand. The thing that I really don't understand. Those 3 police officers were not let go by Lakewood. I know that was a long time ago, but Leonard Thomas's mother, certainly as of last year, was looking for a review of that case. So that was it's still very recent. And now, if those officers had been all let go, including Mike Zarrow, lionized as the former head of Lakewood's police, if they'd all been let go, I think it quite likely quite possible that Saeed Wakim would still be alive. After all, one of those 3 officers went on to shoot Saeed Wakim. And I find it amazing that, if you're working in a company and you do something, and as a result of what you do, your employer has to pay millions of dollars of damages, you surely would have expected to be let go. I understand it's a civil thing, and I understand that there are unions involved and contracts, and Lakewood would have had to have paid compensation to those officers that let go. But now you see what happened, and I think we need to remember that. And I think we need to remember that the city council, there are 2 members of the city council are still on the council. They could have made a fuss. They could have insisted, was it 2018, that those officers be let go? But no, they weren't let go. And anyway, as a result, we're having to celebrate last Monday, May the 1st, we're having to celebrate the 6th anniversary of the death of Saeed Wakim.
Thank you, Mr. Dunlap. So that's, come on down.
Thank you so much. I'm Haley Ivy, and I'm just going to speak again about our parks and any green lot that is paved over or sat dry and bare with no purpose at the moment. But I do want to talk about Edgewater Park because I do go there almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day, because it is one of the only spaces that is undeveloped and untouched, and it is so quiet from all the traffic. But there was the Edgewater Master Plan project, and I'm trying to find information about why there was a tree removal and a large brush removal from the water's edge suddenly overnight. I was there one day, came back the next day, early in the morning, completely gone. The tree was gone. Just dry dirt on the water's edge, and it was shocking. And I went there to go have a nice time, but I couldn't because that was devastating to see. There was no warning. I did go searching for any information about the Edgewater Master Plan project. I don't see any updated information, and I also do not see any information or the video of the last public hearing, their final public hearing. I don't see that. I don't know why. I live in the neighborhood where Edgewater Park lives. I need to know if trees are going to be destroyed and cut down, why and when. I assume that this area, based off the Edgewater Master Plan project, is possibly for the swimming beach that was on that development. I don't know. but the water is full of garbage. It's slimy. There's glass. There's garbage all over this park. There's invasive ivy covering these trees. And so when we have Parks Appreciation Day and people come to that park, ignore the invasives, ignore the garbage in the water, and then completely remove brush and trees, it doesn't make any sense. People can't swim in that lake because it's so dirty. I want to swim in cold water too. But the last city council meeting, people from all of the lakes are citing issues with pollution and the declining health. And again, I had to speak up for Sealy Lake, which if you look at a map, is the only lush green space right next to, an industrial park. That's a safe haven for wildlife in Lakewood. There are deer sleeping in my front yard because these parks are being destroyed, and so is any green space that is happening to still exist in Lakewood. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Ivy. Anyone else would like to speak? Welcome, Helen. Got 3 minutes. You might want to pull that down so we can hear you. Thank you.
Is that, I guess that's all the volume I'm going to get. I'm Helen Wagner. I more or less live in Lakewood, probably more rather than less. As I read through the city tree code, I see that there are many formulas for deciding how to legally remove trees, regardless of the species. I see nothing that protects these trees. On the grounds of simple aesthetics. Beauty is a subjective term. What one person considers all right to look at is an eyesore to someone else. However, the admission that aesthetics, quote, counts, unquote, involves something that is more significant than an artistic issue. Disregard for aesthetics results in urban sprawl. I live in the result of urban sprawl, with the underlying issue of livability. Some modification here has been subtle. Some is earth-shattering. Certainly some of the horrors were perpetrated before the current code and are a problem of zoning rather than tree management. My point is, although modifications are legal, they may not be strictly humane. Where I live, a community gathering place, the swap meet, has been torn down to make way for a commercial building. Now, huge semis connected with that business lumber through the neighborhood to the deterrent of safety. Can I drive today without being run over by a truck? Yes, the sale of that property was legal. However, that business has been a contributing factor in the deterioration of a neighborhood. Let us stop allowing Lakewoods turning into a warehouse community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Anyone else who would like to speak tonight here in Chambers?
Actually, I wouldn't like to speak tonight. I'd rather be at home, but I'm here anyway. Hello, I'm Christina Minetti, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Gary Oak Coalition first. 8 months ago, in August 2025, we notified the city that 3 large Gary Oaks on Alpharetta, hundreds of years old, had their critical root zones paved over with asphalt. Gary Oaks, our city's official tree, of course, and a keystone species, are afforded special protections in the state of Washington. It is Lakewood's responsibility to enforce these. Today, the asphalt is still there. 1 oak is entirely surrounded in asphalt up to its trunk. 2 are half surrounded. Cars are now regularly parked on top of those root zones. This is a private house. This is ongoing active harm to those protected oaks. Mr. Rimac told us on February 26th that we would receive an update the next week, but we have yet to hear anything more. Paving over the critical root zone of a Gary Oak causes, as you can imagine, a variety of harms. First, it prevents water from infiltrating the soil, causing highly exacerbated drought stress. Second, you might have heard that we're in the 4th year. It's like a record that we've never had 4 consecutive drought years. They've already announced it. Second, the asphalt suffocates the roots by cutting off oxygen exchange. Third, it leads to severe soil compaction, which collapses the pore spaces the roots depend on. You can't just smash down it. Maybe you've grown plants, maybe you know this. Fourth, it raises soil temperatures, stressing the trees even more. Fifth, the many serious toxins from the asphalt leach into the soil and poison the oak's root system. So the result is predictable: canopy dieback, increased vulnerability to pests and disease, and eventual decline and even death, often decades after the initial damage to these very long-lived oaks. It's also important to note that simply returning the area to the gravel that used to be there before won't solve the problem. Under Lakewood Municipal Code 33830 definitions, gravel is considered 75% impervious. It functions more like pavement than like natural soil, especially when compacted and driven on. Gravel alone will not adequately restore oxygen and water infiltration or soil structure in a critical root zone. It will continue to fry the soil and roots underneath. The soil, let us remember, is also full of life and essential mycorrhizal fungi. We are asking the City Council to direct staff to take immediate effective enforcement action, resulting in the removal of the asphalt, of course, prohibition of parking, and restoration with truly permeable materials. These Gary Oaks need your help right now before summer starts. Immediate action by the city is necessary to uphold the protections these oaks have guaranteed in Lakewood's code. This lamentable situation is further evidence that the city of Lakewood must start taking the fate of its very valuable Gary Oaks much more seriously. And now I have another comment on behalf of myself, Christina Minetti, Lakewood. A few days ago, we marked a really, really horrible anniversary in our neighborhood. It was 10 years ago on April 28th, 2016, that new neighbors 2 houses away cut down all of their supposedly protected Gary Oaks. There were 7, I think, but it looked like there were a lot more because they had multiple trunks, and they were a part of a grove on adjacent properties. So now there's a gigantic hole in this grove. If you look at the aerials, it's stripped bare. The sound of chainsaws for 3 days was excruciating. Logging trucks took away the oaks from our small residential street for 3 days. We thought the oaks were protected. I mean, we really did. I grew up thinking they were protected. We called the police, who didn't even know what an oak looked like. They said, "Could you show us what an oak looks like?" And finally, somebody at City Hall told us that the owner of the property could do anything he wanted without a permit because his lot was smaller than 17,000 square feet. Whose bright idea was this anyway? To flagrantly ignore Lakewood's need to uphold state law about critical areas and Gary Oak protections. Doug Richardson proposed the exemption in 2001, and Claudia Thomas seconded it. These 2 people had a role to play in facilitating the destruction of hundreds and hundreds of Gary Oaks in Lakewood, probably more than 1,000 for sure. After 2016, my family and I made comments and were told tree code revisions were coming. I naively thought those changes would fix the problem. I really thought. I thought, wow, they must be on it. Instead, over time, it turned out the protections were actually weakened even further. In 2021, I found out that 114 Gary Oaks in a recognized priority habitat and critical area would be destroyed for a speculative warehouse. This shock made it clear that the city was ignoring its responsibilities under state law to protect its Gary Oaks and associated critical areas. The 2023 tree code update addressed the most egregious loophole, the 17,000 square foot exemption, but the losses continue, including city projects, sidewalks, roundabouts, and paths. One of the Gary Oaks removed along the Tillicum path was estimated to be 570 years old. Let that sink in. How can we say that these oaks are protected when the city itself continues to remove them? At the same time, we are seeing Douglas firs, big leaf maples, and cedars stressed and dying all over town, I'm sure you've noticed. We cannot afford to keep losing mature Gary oaks because this tree, which evolved in drier times, most likely has the best chances of surviving now. We might not have any trees left, basically. We need a tree code that truly protects the oaks, not one that still allows for removal for convenience or minor development with a cheap and easy permit. This means stronger standards, consistent enforcement, and public education. I'm here tonight to ask you to begin work on new tree code revisions that would finally result in meaningful enforceable protections for Gary oaks and other trees in Lakewood before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minetti. Is there anyone else in chambers that would like to speak tonight? Anybody else? So I'm going to close that and we're going to move to online. Ms. Atkins, do we have anybody who online who would like to speak?
Yes, we have 2.
Okay, so who's up first? Mr. Dunlop? Mr. Dunlop, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Mr. Dunlop, you've got 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Is available, or should we move to Ms. Anderson?
Oh my God.
Ms. Judith Anderson.
Can you hear me?
Looks like you're muted. Could you please unmute so you could speak?
Did you want me to unmute? Because I could
Ms.
hear
Anderson,
the
you've
prior
got 3
person.
minutes.
Okay. Everything that Christina Minetti just said, play it back louder. I can't believe that you guys keep passing regulations and you don't even follow them yourself. I'm glad I don't live in your town. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Dunlop.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, Zoom was acting weird for a bit. Hello, my name is Tihomir Dunlop, and I'd like to make a comment about an experience I had at Edgewater Park a couple days ago, I think April 30th, but also just more in general about animal control in Lakewood. I was going on a walk with my dad, and there was a stray dog or a loose dog, a pit bull, and it went right up to us, and it didn't seem aggressive or anything, but it was, well, it might have been it was scary. And essentially it followed us for half an hour by Edgewater Park. We were trying to lose it. It would keep coming back to us. There were some people fishing at Edgewater Park, and I asked them, is it your dog? And they said, no, it's not our dog. Like, we were scared of it too. So there's this dog, and it was following us for half an hour. We tried to lose it. As we were going home, it almost got into a fight with another dog. And we tried calling animal control, and animal control did not pick up and said that they would call back within 24 hours as there's an active situation. And eventually we got home and managed to trap the dog in our front yard. But it's kind of concerning, because if you look at the City of Lakewood Animal Control page, it says that there's only 2 full-time animal control officers that cover all of Lakewood, DuPont, and Steilacoom. And we've had this problem before, that we've had issues with stray dogs before, that if you call animal control, they won't pick up. And, calling back within 24 hours, that does not help if you have a dog that needs you need to do something with it. And we tried calling the non-emergency police number, and the police basically said that they would only come if the dog was actively biting people, and the dog wasn't biting people. So what are we going to do with this dog? And luckily, the owner managed to come by eventually. But I think it's a real problem that if somebody needs to call animal control, they basically have no options in Lakewood, because if you call animal control, they won't pick up. And it seems like they're obviously understaffed. I'm not really blaming them, but because they only have 2 people for 3 cities. But yeah, it's a problem, and it was a pretty unpleasant experience.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dunlop. Thank you for your comments. Okay, looks like that's everybody. Ms. Atkins? Okay. So I'm gonna, public comments are closed. Thank you very much. Ms. Atkins, would you please read the consent agenda?
A, approval of minutes of the City Council study session of April 13th, 2026. B, approval of the minutes of the City Council retreat of April 18th, 2026. C, approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting of April 20th, 2026. D, approval of the claims vouchers in the amount of $2,477,658.71 for the period of March 14th, 2026 through April 15th, 2026. E, approval of payroll checks in the amount of $3,774,072.05 for the period of March 16th, 2026 through April 15th, 2026. F, motion number 2026-32, approving the 2025 Transportation Benefit District TBD Annual Report. G, motion number 2026-33, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Asphalt Patch Systems Incorporation in the amount of $659,268 for the 2026 roadway patching and drainage repair project. H, motion number 2026-34, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Sierra Santa Fe Corporation in the amount of $341,427.77 for the 2026 chip seal program. I, motion number 2026-35, authorizing the award of a construction contract to Tucci & Sons LLC in the amount of $684,858.70 for the 112th Street, South Tacoma Way to Steel Overlay Project. J, motion number 2026-36, authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement with the Lakewood Water District regarding the construction of roadway improvements and water mains along Kendrick Street Southwest between 111th Street Southwest and 108th Street Southwest. K, items filed in the Office of the City Clerk, Planning Commission meeting minutes of April 1st, 2026.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Are there any items the council member wishes to remove from the consent agenda? Any items? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
And second, and we have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. Is there any council member comments? I'll just comment that there are a lot of big things in here. We just had the water district in here, and we have the a water district interlocal agreement for construction of roadway improvements and water mains on Kendrick Street. So it was very, very timely, and some important overlay work and chip sealing this summer. So we set up a lot of things here tonight in the consent agenda. So all those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. So the consent agenda is approved. Ms. Atkins, please give us the title of the next introduced public hearing.
This is the date set for a public hearing on the 2026 carry forward budget adjustment.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Kraus, and this begins on page 112 of the packet for those of you watching at home.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. Before you is the public hearing, which is required by state law before City Council considers and adopts the proposed carry forward budget adjustment. Skipping over to page 115 is the summary. If the City Council were to approve the budget adjustment as presented, the general fund ending fund balance would still meet the 12% reserves, and unassigned proposed budget that would still be available would be about $1 million. And here we've included the 0.1% sales tax, so that unassigned 1 million would be set aside for future public defender cost. This information was presented to the City Council on the 20th of April. It has been made available to the public on the city's website as well as the finance website since April 20th. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Kraus. And we went over this at a study session a while back. So this is a public testimony is accepted by mail, email, or by live, virtual, or in-person comment. Send testimony in advance by mail or email to Brianna Schumacher, City Clerk at 6000 Main Street Southwest, Lakewood, Washington 98499, or B. Schumacher at cityoflakewood.us. Testimony received up to 1 hour before the meeting have been provided to the City Council electronically. Ms. Adkins, do we have any comments made electronically before the meeting?
We did not, Mayor Boki.
Thank you, Ms. Adkins. Please announce that the testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. When called upon, please state your name and city of residence. And I'm going to call on folks in person. Is there anybody here in chambers that would like to speak to the changes that are being in this 2026 budget carry forward adjustments? Okay, so we'll go online. Do we have anybody online that wants to speak in the public hearing about these 2026 budget carry forward adjustments? Okay, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much. We'll move on next to, we'll now consider ordinance number 849, which was continued from the April 6th, 2026 and April 20th, 2026 meetings. Ms. Atkins, could you read the title of the ordinance into the record?
Ordinance number 849, amending Lakewood Municipal Code Chapter 5.60 related to rental housing licensing and inspection requirements, continued from April 6, 2026 and April 20th of 2026.
Thank you, Ms. Atkins. Mr. Program Manager Jeff Gum to provide an overview, and please ask if there are any questions from the City Council at the end. We'll have some council member questions, but we do have a couple of amendments too. I think we've got that. We almost got there last time, but Mr. Gum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council. So again, before you is an ordinance modifying Lakewood Municipal Code 5.60. The changes amend a number of different things. There's some spelling changes. There's some definitions that were changed in the sections. It added some clarification as to the registration process versus the registration and inspection process. It changed the exemption. It proposes to change exemption from 10 years to 5, as well as adding a self-certification component to the checklist. The language that council did request for staff to bring back has been added. That was some specific language about accessory dwelling units and exemptions of them from this code. So staff has proposed that. Those changes are on 154 and 155 of your agenda packet. The other thing that staff would recommend to change, assuming that council were to move forward with the ADU exemption, staff would recommend changing one of the definitions in the initial section under definitions 5.60.010, specifically changing accessory dwelling units. We were proposing that we would use the definition that's in 18A70, and that just creates consistency throughout Lake Municipal Code and does clarify what specifically an ADU is under this code. So that I turn it back to council.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gum? Thank you, Mr. Gum. So we need to move and second the ordinance so we can begin discussion on that.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 849.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Ordinance number 849 has been moved and seconded. Councilmember discussion. Anyone who'd like to speak to this? Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have made these comments in the past, but I support the two recommendations that Mr. Gum had outlined, and I'll be making a proposed amendment to incorporate both of those two changes. The one in 5.6.025, item number 7 there, the ADU language, and then accompanying that with the staff recommendation for the ADU definition. So,
okay, why don't we move those amendments? Which one do you want to do first? The one on page 155 of the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to make an amendment to ordinance 849 to include the language provided by staff on page 154 that includes item number 7, accessory dwelling units located on the same lot as the primary residence and where the owner continues to reside in either the primary residence or the accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, we need a second.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded, so it'll read, yes, it's at the bottom of page 154 of your packet, accessory dwelling units located on the same lot as the primary residence and where the owner continues to reside in either the primary residence or the accessory dwelling units. And what that has to do with is the following if you go up to the top there, 560025, the following residential housing units are exempted from the rental licensing requirements as provided in 560020 and inspection certification of compliance requirements as provided. So it adds a 7th, and now there'll be 8 types of units that are exempted. So any comments? Mr. Lauricella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From my perspective, I believe enacting this increases the risk to folks who are renting these properties, right? I understand the idea that, you know, if a landlord lives on site, then maybe he'll take better care of the facilities nearby, but I still am concerned that there are landlords with ADUs that don't take good care of them, and that the protections by exempting this go away from the folks who need to be safe in those homes. And in terms of well, I guess we have 2 separate movements on this, right? So we're just talking the first one. That's my
We'll have
comment.
another one, I think, here in
thank
a
you.
minute.
That may, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Lindholm.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that sentiment. We want to make sure that everyone's thought of and safe. I want to make sure we don't forget homeowners too. They have an experience in this, and the good news here is that if a renter has a concern, that they can still call in and the city will respond. So they're not left without recourse. And so we can give the renters recourse and at the same time preserve that quiet enjoyment that homeowners deserve.
Thank you. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm strongly urge that we not approve this amendment. That I believe it to be short-sighted. First of all, in that there's no real data to show that the owner of a property that constructs an ADU or that has an ADU on his site is going to take care of it to the extent intended by the rental housing safety program. In actuality, when we look at it in terms of exempting them from a licensing, there's a significant difference between someone that establishes an ADU or has an existing ADU that they then put a family member or someone in. that often those are done with not looking at market rental rates. They're usually done without leases, and they're usually done in ways that there is going to be some constant observation and monitoring because it's a relative living in the house. In the case of where there is someone that has an ADU and they're renting it out, they will generally they either establish it or they are doing it as a money-making investment opportunity. And so they should not be exempt from the licensing departments, and we should not assume that because it's close to their primary residence, that they're going to make sure that it is well-maintained to include all of the standards in the rental housing safety program. In fact, when these will be rented for whatever the market rate is for the size of an ADU, and it will probably be managed by a lease that will restrict the owner's access to it to a limited number of times and people to do there, and that much of the maintenance and the idea of reporting problems will resolve to a renter. And so there's not a reason to assume that these people have these things are any different than other landlords of other type of rental units. And I will speak to my own experience. Okay. A number of years ago, I purchased a home that was on a land and it had an existing ADU that was being rented. Now, my wife and I were particularly looking at, for a price of property, that an ADU was viewed to us as an advantage because we were considering relocating my 90-year-old father from Wisconsin to here, to where there was no family left in Wisconsin, to be able to go and do that. When we acquired the property, the ADU was rented, and there was a tenant with a lease to do that. And we talked with him about how in 6 months we were going to look to move my father there, and that we would not be renewing their lease. So that happened, and we did that. And because we were planning to put my father into it, we went in and we did a variety of things in that ADU. When my father relocated here, however, his doctor indicated that he was not, with his level of dementia, not able to actually stay in an ADU, even if it was with us, unless we were willing to take on significant caregiving abilities, which would be probably not to his advantage, his having to relocate 1,800 miles here to a very strange environment, and encouraged us to find an appropriate assisted living facility, and we did. And so then here we were at a house and we had an ADU, and we went and we looked to rent it out. And we went through a sequence of renters who stayed in it short term, we had some good ones, but we had some that ended up not taking good care of it. And when they were done, we did what we could, but we weren't applying all of the code type things that were there, but we were looking to do that. We essentially brought it up to shape of where someone would rent it again. And in the very last renter that we had, it was a situation where we really had to handle it as a business, okay, of how we were doing. And I will tell you, when we were shopping for that property, And then when we were selling the property that this particular property, the real estate broker who was either first trying to sell it to us and other properties that had ADUs increasingly mentioned that this ADU is a moneymaker and it will help you defer your costs like your taxes and other things. And that's why an ADU on your property is a good thing. And the broker that we hired to sell our property for us did the same thing to prospective buyers. Okay, marketed as a thing to be able to go and do that. And the last thing why I say that this is short-sighted is someone builds an ADU, they are going to be able to take advantage of the provisions of that they have the 5 years from their certificate of occupancy, being able to go through and do that. But those properties are going to be eventually become 20 years old and 30 years old and 40 years old, which were and they will be affordable, smaller rental properties that were exactly the time of group of properties that were the situation that we were trying to address and have a tool to make sure we're kept up to standards around the city that caused us to establish the rental housing safety program. And so I think that in the long term, we should recognize that these landlords these properties will be sold. They will move from one person, not the original person who built it, whatever their altruistic thoughts about maintaining the property, to having a second and third thing, but they would remain in that category of where there's a primary owner and he's got a rental unit on his parcel. So I think that we should recognize that these are rental properties and that we should keep them like all other rental properties with the limited exceptions that are there as subject to the rental housing safety provisions.
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Branstetter. Councilmember Pearson, I'll give you the last word.
I can have one more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate all the comments and I appreciate Mr. Lindholm's comments. I think that inherently there's always bad apples, right? But those bad apples are addressed through the rental housing safety program, through enforcement and other actions. But really, I guess what I'm trying to kind of accomplish here with this amendment is that the exemption number 1 talks about rental housing units occupied by owner or parent or child of owner. And that is a very tight term. And I think that when you try to come up with something too cute to kind of like be more inclusive of what a different type of family unit could be, it could be my son and their friend, or, you know, a family friend or an aunt or someone. It gets too messy trying to come up with some specific language about that. But what's very specific about those scenarios is oftentimes the owner is living in one of the units. And so the owner's living in one of the units and their family friend or whoever else is trying to occupy another one of the units. And so that's what I'm really trying to get at here, is to be more inclusive to all types of family units and friends, to, you know, and there are always going to be bad apples, but you know, I think that I'd rather have a little bit of freedom for some of the owner occupiers in Lakewood that are trying to help their family and friends and others out. They may also be making money on it. That's not to say that they can't do that, but you know, there's other things at play here, and I don't think that this creates a significantly worse situation for hardly any units. We're talking about, you know, a good chunk of these. I don't know what, there's no data out there to support this claim. There's not really much to refute the other claim. So it's kind of more of a, in my opinion, you know, I guess putting something out there for the homeowners of Lakewood. So, thank you.
Thank you, council member. So not every member has to speak, but it is the first round. So before I let anybody else speak in the second round, Councilmember Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Councilmember Pearson, I understand and appreciate those comments. I guess for that reason, yes, it becomes all the more, it can become, how you define family can vary. I mean, who is the city to say what is a relative and what counts as a direct relative or child or parent? And my initial reaction to this amendment when it came forth, or this idea when it came forth, was that like Councilmember Lauricella, I had concerns about the welfare of the renter, because I thought that by exempting ADUs, I don't want to create a scenario where it becomes subjective or undecipherable at some point who is related and what is related, and it's not anybody's business or role to dial into that. But at the very most, I believe that renters, no matter what facility type or building room you live in, renters deserve protections all the same. And especially vulnerable renters who have limited abilities or facilities or skills to advocate for themselves in situations when their living situation is not, does not meet their needs. Sure, certainly the law on paper says that they have the right to seek inspections or go through the process, but adding this exemption in this ordinance here, I think, weakens those rights in these cases. So for reasons that I have heard tonight, I agree with Councilmember Lauricella and Branstetter. I will not be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
So we'll go to the second round. Councilmember Lindholm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate the many thoughts and concerns Mr. Branstetter put forward. I do think that that's based on a number of assumptions that just aren't true. You know, I've been a licensed real estate professional for 16 years now, and you know, it's absolutely the case that ADUs tend to not necessarily be at market rate. They are often rented to friends of friends, folks that are somehow in your circle. And landlords are often incentivized to lower the rent so that people stay and that they have someone they know and appreciate and trust on their property. So they often aren't at market rate. I also think it's the case that these are different than other landlords. Somebody tends to take care of their home better than a renter might. And so what happens in these situations is that you have a homeowner who's not going to abandon one part of their property that's right across the yard when they're taking care of their home. So there is typically a higher standard of care that happens in these situations. I also think we just want to be careful about the logic that if it makes money, we can inspect it and tax it. Not least because we're trying to encourage affordable housing. And when there are cost burdens laid on landlords, that raises rents, it discourages creating affordable housing, and ADUs tend to be more affordable than other market housing. So for those reasons and others, I think it's really important to support this amendment. It's also the case that having personal experience with a rental safety program, I don't know if you guys have, it doesn't always make the property safer, but it always raises the cost every single time.
Thank you. Councilmember Lauricella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki, and thank you, Councilmember Lindholm. I appreciate your input, and I too want to protect businesses, small businesses, landlords, that sort of thing. My thought, though, is, you know, if we were to depend on renters reporting to drive improvements, we would never have needed the rental housing safety program in the first place, right? If everyone self-reported, that wouldn't be an issue. And we have needed it because there are properties that aren't maintained. And I think a lot of that is because renters are often fearful. They're afraid to report because they're vulnerable, as Councilmember Talbot said. Either they're elder residents, they're afraid their rent's going to go up as a result of this, or they have limited income, or they're undocumented, right? There's a fear of putting yourself on the map and the attention that that brings to you. And I think we need to be able to protect those folks. So that's why I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Lauricella. Councilmember Branstetter,
Okay, I would just say is that when we're told, as the ordinance is written, that, or, and as the amendment is written, the amendment is particularly focused on exempting them from the licensing requirement. And the licensing requirement is not financially significant. Okay, and while I would agree that when we have landlords of all types of rental properties around the city, that there are good landlords, there are bad actors, and there are careless landlords in between that don't really know what they're doing. So I think that licensing ADUs that just happen to be on the same parcel as as an owner of the parcel is the best thing to do is say trust but verify. And the way that you trust and verify is you have them licensed, that they follow through, do that and with a 5-year inspection, or as the ordinance is establishing a self-inspection, but there are clear standards being able to go and do that. And the rental housing safety program simplifies the manner in which even a reluctant renter can bring something forward. And so I think that we would be well-served going forward into the future, particularly as these ADUs will begin to age, to keeping them in the program.
thank you, Councilmember Branstetter. So we'll take a voice vote here, and let's just make sure we understand. This is at the bottom of page 154, adding another, the following residential housing units are exempted from the rental licensing requirements as provided in 560020 and inspection and certificate of compliance requirements as provided in 560080. So with that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
So I think it's 4-3. Let's do a roll call then. Ms. Atkins, please.
Councilmember Pearson,
Aye.
Councilmember Talbot,
Nay.
Councilmember Branstetter,
Nay.
Councilmember Lauricella,
Nay.
Councilmember Lindholm,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Bell,
Aye.
and Mayor Bokie.
Aye. With that, the amendment passes 4-3. So we're on to amendment number 2. Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would move to amend this amended ordinance to include the definitions recommended by staff if the previous amendment had passed. And so that is included on page 156 of our packet to include the ADU definitions expanded.
So the definition is expanded there in red, I believe. Is that how you wrote this, Mr. Gum? A habitable dwelling unit added to, created within, or detached from and on the same lot with a single-family residential unit, duplex, triplex, townhome, or other housing unit that provides basic requirements for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation.
Correct. That is the definition as it's written in 18A 70.
Thank you. So we have a motion for that, and then do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion around this amendment? The definition? Okay. Councilmember Branstetter.
Let me just say, given that we're incorporating some specific language that relates to ADUs in the ordinance and in the program, that then having a definition of ADU that is clear is of value.
Thank you, Councilmember Branstetter. So all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, so now we have the ordinance as it stands with the two amendments in it. We've talked about this quite a bit, so this is council member discussion. Who'd like to kick it off? Anybody like to speak to it? Okay, I'll jump in then. We really worked hard as a council to get this thing passed the first time. We ended up with only one nay vote that night. We amended it a number of times also. Some of those amendments are like we had a 10-year lockout period. Now this is going to a 5. But we were going to get inspections every 5 years. Now we're giving up on that. And so I have a little bit of heartache about this ordinance in general, about what may happen, because I believe this has been a wildly successful ordinance. If you were here when we had public comment on this thing, and you know, it's proven to be actually better than I feared, because I feared, and we had reason to believe, that there would be whole teardowns. I mean, when staff was very concerned, that's why we didn't do a geographic inspection. We did the lottery system, because we were worried that it would go into certain neighborhoods and we had to shut down apartment buildings, especially, I guess. We would end up in really tough situation of putting people out on the street. It was a real concern at the time when we did it. I don't know that that happened. I don't know that it ever happened. But I think that the rental housing safety plan ordinance has been instrumental in improving the living conditions of people in the city of Lakewood. I really do believe that was not going to happen on its own. It wasn't happening on its own. And the reason we did it is because Lakewood had this reputation of, well, that's where the cheap apartments are. And we literally had testimony that said, well, this is Lakewood. Like, love it or leave it, right? It's Lakewood. So of course they have cheap apartments. I mean, that was the attitude of some of the folks. A lot of out-of-state landlords. We still have out-of-state landlords. It's not a bad thing. They bring investment. A lot of landlords who just didn't care. So hopefully, but I will say this, I trust Mr. Gum and I trust our staff when they say we're spending a lot of time just going out on inspections now and finding GFI plugs, that we're not finding any more of the large problems. I do have concerns that we are going to slip. I really do. I just believe that there's going to be slippage, because when you tell people who they can self-report, there's going to be some people who are incredibly honest. They're going to say, we went through your checklist and we found problems. There's going to be other people that say, no, there's no problems. And then the place will be a wreck. So somehow we have to figure out a way that people know that they can still contact the city and get an inspection. We're still going to license them. I think that's positive. We've actually expanded the licensing a bit. I think that's positive. So I'm willing to support this. But I I really do feel like we're taking a step back, but I'm gonna back staff on this, that this is, the heavy inspection system is no longer a really valid use of their time. That, the inspection system that we're moving towards. So, hopefully in a year, we'll have Mr. Gum up here to tell us about how many people have self-inspected, how many people have actually still got calls in from people, and how we're continuing some kind of inspection regime that allows us to know that where the really bad actors are. But those things aren't going to happen overnight. So I'm going to support this because I really do want to support staff in making sure that we have an effective program and not just one where people are going out and spending money on inspections that aren't really finding anything. It's been 10 years. I think it's been highly effective, but it's a tough vote for me because I feel like I'm walking away from this a little bit and cracking the door open again to really dangerous landlords, really bad people who we've had a lot of in this city and who really drug our reputation down. And so, and of course, nobody will admit that, and we can't just point to people and say you're a bad landlord. So we had this inspection system, right, that was on a lottery system that made sure that everyone was 5 years. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to vote for it with reluctance, but Councilmember Lauricelle.
Sorry to interrupt your reflection. I really appreciate the care that you expressed with this, Mayor Boki. I too will be supporting this, but with a fair share of reluctance. I am concerned about self-certification, right? And the risk that that carries, and that there is no consequence for someone to self-certify and be found in violation of that compared to someone who didn't self-certify and be in violation of that, right? So that, to me, can breed problems. And I want to make sure that we're supportive of staff, because this is something that they've done a great job on up to this point, and I trust them. But I think this needs to come with a short leash, and maybe we need to review it again in a year to see how it's going. But I will support this as written. Thank you.
Councilmember Lindholm.
I think that's an excellent point. I would strongly support, if there was to be an amendment or a rewriting, and I know we don't want to keep putting this back, I would strongly support making sure that there is some kind of a penalty. If you lie to the city, if you use a photo that's not true and accurate, we want to make sure people are giving us good information if we're giving them the right to self-certify.
I think we should give staff a chance to put something like that together. Is there any penalties right now for Gum?
Yeah, it's kind of a good point. So the certification that I have worked on and put together so far, there's a number of provisions. So one of them is not necessarily something that is typically enforced, but
Sorry, Mr. Gum, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
oh, sorry. So there we go. Should be better now. So the certification that I've been working on has a number of provisions. One of them that is not typically enforced is somebody who knowingly and willingly submits falsified certification of inspection information. It's a gross misdemeanor and punishable with up to $5,000. That's one provision. Not something that we would typically enforce, but we could. The other provisions would be somebody, again, if you knowingly and willingly or willfully provide false information, you're disqualified from future pending self-certifications from that property or any other property. So if you own multiple properties and you provide the information and it's incorrect, you can't do that ever again for any of your properties. That would go for management and ownership. So there's actually two processes to a self-certification. There's the who does the inspection, which is either going to be a private inspector or management. And then the owner is also certifying, yes, I visited my property and it does in fact meet the requirements. So there's two people that are certifying this process, or at least that's what we're proposing. And then there's a provision that if any information is incorrect, the owner of the rental property confirms that the city can follow up with a full inspection of the property. And that would be the staff's recommendation if we do find that false information is provided, it would be a full inspection of the property, which is something that the RHSB already does anyways. It does allow the city to do a full inspection of any property if we find code violations. So, and most likely, we would be informed of somebody necessarily providing false information after we had multiple tenant complaints of a property and followed up. So not necessarily the first complaint, because somebody can miss something, and it can be seemingly insignificant and not knowing and willful. But if you continue to get complaints and you're seeing the same thing, then that pretty well stacks up to becoming knowing and willful misrepresentation. So.
Thank you, Mr. Gum. Any other questions? Councilmember Brandstetter. Comments, I guess. Comments, questions?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your earlier comments, and I do that, and the idea of the self-certification, I think is a significant weakening of the program. Mr. Mayor, I would move to amend the ordinance to delete under 5-60-080, paragraph C, and this is on page 160, which is the paragraph that establishes a self-certification program.
I'll second that. Any comments?
Okay, well, I guess I propose this because I believe that it is, while the idea of saving time is an argument that can be made, I think that it drastically has the potential to reduce the effectiveness of this program, or to make, in the cases of problematic properties, to do that. When we first did that and you spoke about the history, what really happened after we did this, after all the contention, was there were a significant number of properties, particularly multifamily properties, that owners sold them rather than fixing them, and new landlords came in knowing that we had the program, and it generally helped to be able to go and do that. And I think that is one of the strengths of the program. The idea during COVID, we did modify the inspection system because we did some video inspections where an inspector didn't go there, but that we had folks go through and do that. But that was always intended to be a temporary, given all of the different restrictions and the problems that people had about strangers coming into their house and doing all that. I think we're past that. I think we should continue to keep the program as it is, okay? And I don't think that that just saving time is an adequate reason to abandon the actual inspections, either by a city inspector or by a certified hired inspector by a landlord.
Thank you, Councilmember Brandstetter. Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this has been one of the tough points for me looking at this as well, is I don't, and maybe Mr. Gum, can you elaborate on why this was added? What was staff trying to accomplish here, or what was why was this change proposed in the first place?
So it was proposed for a number of reasons. After inspecting properties for 8 years, we've kind of, as the mayor, kind of captured. I mean, we've seen all of the really large scale failures and code deficiencies, and haven't seen a lot of those for the last probably 2.5, 3 years. So we're not necessarily finding the same things that we used to be finding. A lot of what we're finding now, it tends to be electrical fixes, plumbing fixes, just just kind of small things, just general maintenance, those types of things, holes in ceilings from plumbing leaking upstairs into a lower unit. That it sounds bad, but I mean, that's going to happen. So we're finding a lot of that. We're not finding necessarily 3-story decks falling off the back of buildings like we used to. Entire floors of structures kind of collapsing and so forth. So that was one of the components. One of the other things was we've had some of the properties that have done a good job maintaining their properties over the years, and it's fairly easy to find those properties and identify them. They've been consistent since day one, and they have been asking, hey, it's kind of an onersome task upon us to inspect 300 units of properties and make sure that they're all done every 5 years. Our maintenance guys are out there every day. We're doing this thing. We know what our units look like. So that was a request of some of the property managers and the owners that were out there. And the other thing was just the staff time and our ability to kind of shift focus from not necessarily inspecting the ones that we know are going to be fairly easy to pass to focusing on the ones that we need to correct and get some of those issues fixed on a different level versus just kind of everyday things failing. So there was kind of a 3-front that we were looking at.
So with that, I guess, would there be some sort of a middle ground in which instead of requiring the city to go do these inspections, could they hire like a building inspector or something to go do a third-party inspection to satisfy this?
They can, and that's part of our provision that allows that. The third-party inspectors typically charging $150 a unit, which is, yeah, fairly expensive. If you're looking at a single-family house, it's going to be even more than that. They're going to charge you probably $300 or $400 to do a single-family house. So it's not necessarily something that saves them any money. It probably costs them more. We do a free inspection for the first rental inspection process through the city. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Lauricella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki. I appreciate Councilmember Brandstetter and his motion to take this out. I think, so I'm very appreciative of the city staff and their time and trying to get efficiency into our processes. And especially when we are very resource constrained, and it looks like we'll be more resource constrained as we go into the future. So to me, the better option is to have a self-certification process, but having the teeth of something like he suggested is a gross misdemeanor for intentionally and knowingly lying on your application, essentially, right? To try and pull one over on the city, right? I think having the teeth to be able to enforce that if and when it's discovered to something as high as a gross misdemeanor, as well as if I'm a property owner and I knowingly falsified documents that said this was certified and there's a fire and the insurance company comes and they're going to find out from the city that you self-certified something that was false, that's a big deal. So I think having some teeth to it, but still having it in our overall ordinance is the way I would like to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lauricella. Councilmember Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I initially had concerns with this entire ordinance when it came to us along similar lines that you discussed in your comments. My reaction was that Lakewood being more than 50% renter occupied, it seems like we would not want to weaken our renter protections for them, but sustain, if not, and sustain renter rights and protections for them. So but to your point, I also, being a new council member, I will confess not having a history long enough. So I do, in that sense, do want to trust staff with being able to, enforce and implement a program that works for the resources that we have available. At the same time, I also worry too about our larger rental units, our larger rental complexes, because there are several throughout the city. And I understand that this ordinance when it came about initially, was geared towards kind of those smaller complexes, much older, that had, much older, like pre-incorporation days. But our older complexes are getting old too now. I mean, those are not fresh off the block, and they are going to, if not already, encounter issues like everyday, some everyday issues that the much, much older complexes that we were trying to deal with in the first place. And so I worry about the protections and the enforceability of addressing issues at those larger complexes, particularly also because those larger complexes are often under corporate management companies, and therefore they typically enact thicker leases with much more nuanced, finer print to their tenants. In many cases, it's not uncommon for corporate lease holders to insist that their tenants sign NDA disclosures as a condition of their rental lease agreements. And so I guess, so it makes it in some cases harder for tenants in those complexes. And if we're allowing those larger complexes to now self-certify, I fear that we are then further weakening protections for renters that are, again, 50% or more of the city. So I do want to support this because I do want to support staff. I'm not going to, I am going to vote to support this, but I also don't know what the answer is to Councilmember Branster's proposed amendment to remove letter C of 560-080. I would like to not try to come up with that solution and put it in an in an amendment. I would like to entrust that staff comes forward with some solutions. So yeah, so I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Talbot. Councilmember Brandstetter. I think we'll be ready to go here.
Our issue is not whether we support staff. Our issue is whether we're supporting the majority of the community that are renters. That I think that at this point in time, saying we want to make this change because the history is sort of showing that as we go through some second inspections and things. But, one, we have, in the ordinance in front of us, we're reducing that no inspections for 10 years down to 5, which is a strengthening of it. But we have places that have never been inspected yet because of that. Okay. That we have situations to do that. And I accept Talbot's idea that I think staff could come back with something that really has some sort of enforcement that would not rely upon a renter to be able to go and do that. I listened to the abatement rules over there, and we seem to be finding places that have serious problems, and we have had to close places down in order that they be people removed and ordered landlords to help pay for relocation of folks. I think we need to retain the things that have made and the inspection program is what has made this program as successful as it has been. That certainly a more clearly identified way that a self-certification wouldn't do this, that had some real teeth, or that it provided some, like, you could self-certify after you've had 2 consecutive past inspections, which would be after a period of, you've gone through 10 years of where you had and things to do that, or something. And I'm not proposing that, but I am saying that staff could bring something like that back that would make it clear to us as we sit here how this wouldn't be a significant weakening of the program. And more importantly, that it wouldn't be a significant weakening of the program to current and potential landlords. So that's why I am proposing this amendment. And maybe at some future time, there is something with enough teeth that I would support, but I wouldn't support it now for the reasons that I've heard. And given what is really a short history of the program, to say that somehow we've made everybody actively compliant.
Thank you, Councilmember Branstetter. I do have one more question, Mr. Gum, unfortunately. Have there been any other, when we started this, there were a number of cities that had started rentals plans. A number have started since then, I believe. Have any moved this from an active, what I would consider an active inspection plan, to a more passive program like we're proposing here?
No, there's one city that had a certification, sorry, that had a self-certification from the get-go, and I forget, it was Renton or somewhere around there. But no one has gone from an active to a non-active.
So how about Councilmember Branstetter's point there that we had that 10-year lockout period, which was one of the amendments we had that night to help it get it passed. And we've kept that in place. Now you're going back to 5 years. But as he points out, if you're in the 10-year lockout period, some folks have never been inspected. So I'm going to move from no inspection to, the idea was that after 10 years, these places would start to get old and beat up, and now they need an inspection. So how's that going to work? They're just going to go to self-inspection and write this thing off?
They could, I mean, that it's an option under this, that they could go to self-inspection. They can still have the city inspect or a private inspector. So I mean, it's one of 3 options is what it allows them. So, and the city still does have the provision to follow up with tenant complaints and so forth, so.
Thanks. We need to vote on the amendment. A rental housing owner may provide self-certification that they're, so the amendment is to strike on page 160, section 5.60080, paragraph C, which it is the self-certification program. So all those in favor of striking paragraph C signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. We're gonna have to do a voice vote, or excuse me, division.
Councilmember Branstetter,
Aye.
Councilmember Laura Sella,
Aye.
Councilmember Lindholm,
Nay?
Councilmember Pearson,
Nay.
Councilmember Talbot,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Bell, Mayor Bokie.
Nay. So the amendment fails. So now we have the underlying ordinance as amended by the 2 amendments that have passed this evening. Again, I think this is a really big step. I think it's a potentially dangerous step. I'll make one more comment as mayor. I mean, Councilmember Branstetter lived through this. We hear a lot about mom and pop and whatnot, but increasingly the rental market is increasingly populated, like Councilmember Talbot mentioned, by very large corporations. I mean, Invitation Homes owns something like 500 or more residences, and they may own more now in like Pierce County alone, and dozens here in the city of Lakewood. They were owned by BlackRock Corporation and they were spun off. BlackRock's really like often joked of as the fourth branch of government. I mean, when Larry Fink talks on CNBC, I watch because he's really telling us how the world really is going to work. So the idea that we're dealing with the kind of naive people who just want to make a buck and whatnot, it's nice. I think it's sentimental, and it's true in some cases, but increasingly it's not. Even for single family homes, they're run. So this opens the door. Again, I said I would support this, but it opens the door and to folks that it could potentially be a problem. And so I hope this is not really the taking all the teeth out of it and ruining this program that I think actually worked very, very well. So with that,
Just one question.
all those, okay.
Do adult family homes, are they considered to be rentals as well, or are they completely separate?
They're separate.
Okay,
And
thank you.
they're under one of the exemptions.
They are not. They're licensed by Washington State and are not part of our rental
Okay,
program.
thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Totally different can of worms. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a very quick comment? I think it's absolutely true that we have larger and larger conglomerates owning our rental stock. But one of the reasons why is because we make it so hard for small landlords. The moment we pass more and more regulation is the moment they get out. So it is helpful to have steps that make it feasible for those folks to compete.
Perhaps. Your remarks are well taken, or in the record. Thank you, Councilmember Lindholm. Okay, all those in favor? Councilmember Branstetter.
Let me just say then that I'm going to vote nay on this ordinance because I think we've done it does significant harm to the program, and I'm going to vote nay.
Thank you, Councilmember Branstetter. All those in favor of ordinance number 849 as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. So ordinance number 849 as amended is adopted. Okay, next. Resolution number 2601. Ms. Atkins, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution number 2026-01, amending the City of Lakewood's purchasing policies continued from April 20th, 2026.
Good evening, Mayor Boki, Deputy Mayor Bell, and members of the council. Heidi Wachter, City Attorney for the City of Lakewood. And we're here tonight looking at some amendments that were spurred on by changes in state law. I misstated what was going on with the small works roster because a lot of us had heard, oh, it's all been repealed. There was a repeal, but there was also a replacement to small works. And that's what is reflected in your proposal now that has the changed language in red. And I'm looking at, for small works, page 175. Essentially what happened is we had been following a practice of using the MRSC small works roster. That is now the state small works roster, and they provided different dollar levels at which that's going to be fully implemented over time. So this proposal in the resolution would put that into your purchasing policies. Additionally, we've addressed the alternative small works roster. That is a very specific thing that's outlined in RCW, and it's a situation where you wouldn't want to use regular bidding, and it's a very involved process. I don't see us using it a lot, but now it's in our policies in case we would ever need to use it. And the apprenticeship program that I had previously mentioned, that is now part of state law, and that's pages 176 through 179. And it is all in red so that you can see what the track changes are. There's also at the beginning of the resolution language, there's some changes to the definitions that have been built in to accommodate this new language that I've just outlined for you. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, City Attorney Wachter. Is there any questions? This is the same thing. Is there additional language than what you showed us 2 weeks
There's
ago?
not new language. What happened previously was I failed to bring you something that tracked changes. And then when you had questions, I couldn't see even, I like to follow along with the track changes as well so that I'm focused on that for you. So that's what we have for you tonight.
We appreciate you doing that. Councilmember Pearson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No questions, but I just appreciate us taking it off the agenda a few weeks ago. There was certainly some confusion around that, and now I think everything's been pretty well ironed out. So I will be supporting this, and I appreciate the clarifications and the track changes. Makes it much more clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I need a motion.
I move to, I'm on the wrong one. Which one is?
It's 2020 resolution number.
Move to adopt resolution 2026-01.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 2026-01. Is there any comments by council? Okay, so we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of approving resolution number 2026-01 signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. So resolution number 2026-01 is adopted. We will now consider resolution number 2026-02. Ms. Atkins, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution number 2026-02, adopting the fiscal year 2026 Consolidated Annual Action Plan, July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027 for CDBG and home programs, including amendments to fiscal year 2023, 2024, 2025 Consolidated Annual Action Plans.
Mr. Gum, Program Manager Jeff Gum, to provide an overview. And we've talked about this a number of times, so summarize and let us know if there's any changes or.
Right. So again, good evening, council. So this was reviewed initially March 16th. Since the initial review, kind of the only thing that has really changed is we learned our CDBG and home allocations. So when we originally reviewed it, we were putting together what we thought were the allocations. We are actually in 2026, we'll be receiving $512,515 in CDBG. So that's a 6.2% increase. And it's also an increase from our proposed allocation. I believe it was $480,000 that we were proposing. Our home allocation is $251,791. That's fairly similarly flat to what it was last year, $250,503. So the funding allocations since we originally reviewed came in, they are slightly higher. The only thing that we have modified in the plan is to prorate or take the increase on a pro rata basis and run that across the board for all of the previous fundings that were proposed. So they've just been moderately increased. Since then, we've had a public hearing and I have not received any other comments on the plan to date. So with that, I turn it back to council.
Little bit of good news there. I get a kick out of the home one, which is just a few dollars or something like that.
This is the first increase in probably 6 years now, so it's been a while.
Good. All right, are there any questions for Mr. Gum? Okay, thank you, Mr. Gum. So before we start discussion, I need a motion on resolution number 2026-02. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Adoption of resolution 2026-02.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2026-02. Are there any more comments on the CDBG? Thank you, everybody, for your efforts. A lot goes into putting this together. All right, with that, all those in favor of approval of resolution number 2026-02 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Resolution number 2026-02 is adopted. Mr. City Manager, do we have any unfinished business?
No, we do not.
Any new business?
No, we do not.
So, Mr. Reports by the city manager, Mr. City Manager Doug Russell, World Traveler.
Yes, try and be brief, but have a couple topics here that, one, look for guidance, and then we'll have some information related to information we sent out earlier and heard public comment on tonight related to American Lake. First item, wanted to discuss a little bit on sister cities. We just returned from Gimhe and had a pretty extensive itinerary of some of the cultural components, and had good discussions with museum curators and executive directors related to their work there, and really related to their historical artifacts going back to the 4th century. Some of the talk that we had related around the concept, and it's very preliminary, you know, it wasn't an offer, wasn't by either side, but about potentially trying to work with Gimhe and potentially bring back essentially some form of a historical museum exhibit to someplace locally here, and really bring in that cultural exchange that is the foundation of the MOUs within the sister city programs. I bring that up in relation to a previous discussion we had about Summerfest this year, where it was talked about inviting the 4 cities or delegations from the 4 cities to Summerfest. I've previously expressed some concern in talking with our sister cities committee here about the logistics related to that, and demonstrating a level of hospitality that I think would fall short just based on resources. You know, when we travel to Gimhe, for example, they have a whole department dedicated to really international relations and those components, and are set up much more beneficial than we are. So I'd like us to revisit that initial suggestion about inviting the 4, and really just invite 1 and look at that as potentially Gimhe, just to further that relationship that seems to be, you know, a really strong one we're working on. Right now, I've had multiple exchanges over the last few years, and with this potential option and avenue for some higher level cultural exchange for the community, I think it is ripe for that. So I'd just like to get some direction from the council. If you're amenable to that, we can work on an invitation and work with the mayor on a potential letter to go out requesting or inviting them and a delegation, including potential museum directors and curators, to attend that as well. So looking if that's amenable to council, and then get that guidance, we can start working on that.
You want an answer right now?
That'd be good. If there's any objections or any, really just kind of looking for some consensus.
Okay. We need a consensus. So first, I'm looking at the folks who went. Who went? Okay.
I would strongly support that. They're an incredible partner. They are about 10 times our size, so they have more resources, but that doesn't mean that we can't show them a good time, for lack of a better way to do it. And their museum directors in particular are really engaging. They talked about all the many things that they can do with and for Lakewood, including archaeological surveys. I mean, it's really fascinating stuff that I think could bring out our history.
Wow. Okay.
I totally support that. I think that they, between meeting with the curators and the executive directors and the people who could make some decisions, I think there's a lot of potential to tie in with the Korean Women's Association, with our Asian Pacific Cultural Center, with Pierce College. There are so many great tie-ins. We have an enormous Korean population here, and I love the history that we learned and how we could bring that to our residents of Lakewood. So I think it's a really good start for conversation. So yes, I would support that.
Anybody else like to
Yeah.
comment? Councilmember Talbot.
Yes, I'm absolutely. The Gimhe delegation was incredibly generous and receiving of hosting us, and it would be a pleasure to host them here. I think on a separate, just for a second, on a separate path, I think that we do need to have a broader conversation, or at least at a level of just general sister city programming, so that we can ensure how we can be successful with our other cities. But overall, this was a wonderful trip. It taught us so much about just, I think, cultural and ambassadorship. And like Philip mentioned, they are a city that is 10 times our size. So
there is quite to learn, I think, even in resource wise, how we can leverage so many different things in there, in the arenas of culture and the arts to support Lakewood.
I think it was really incredibly nice to offer, you know, the art stuff, or at least to begin the discussions of that. I wasn't there, but you know, the folks that were there and the city manager. So I think that's a go. We'll just invite one. We do need a future discussion on our sister cities. One we've never hear from at all. One we hear from and they give us 30 days notice. The other one has kind of dropped off the map a little bit, and I'm not sure why. We need a study session probably about it and some examples of what other cities are doing. Does that give you enough?
Yeah, sounds like we can
continue.
go ahead and extend invitation to Gimhe for Summerfest, and Mayor, I'll work with you and we'll get a official invitation drafted and sent out. Next item, and we did hear public comment related to cannabis. That was one of the directives provided on April 18th. What we didn't talk to you about is the process related to that, to bring an ordinance back with a land use change component. Those next steps should be to go before the Planning Commission and have that full public process identified through the traditional land use there. I said we just didn't talk about that much. It was just discussed to bring forth a vote on it, but really should go through the planning process or through the planning board process prior to coming before council. Council would prefer to have a study session to get more of a general consensus. We can do that. But again, the guidance we were looking at is to bring it forward through a vote, which would go through the planning board process. So that's our intent, unless there's a difference of opinion tonight where someone may want to have it as a study session type beforehand.
Councilmember Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mayor Wilkie. Just a question. If this goes through the planning commission process, that would potentially include a public hearing of some sort so people could participate?
Yeah, and I'll defer to our city attorney. Do they have a specific public hearing at the planning process, or does it come before when we hit the council level?
Typically, the planning commission has heard the public piece. That doesn't change the fact that the public can come to the council and make comments. I would want to look at the specifics of exactly what's being proposed to the planning commission to be clear on that. But that's one of the things that we've done in the past, is held the public hearing at the planning commission, and then it comes to the council for consideration.
Continue.
So, okay, we'll continue on that process then, is what I'm gathering. I hit a few things, then we'll come back to lake management and walk through some of the components related to requests the council has heard and where the legal authority relates to treatment of a publicly owned body. But did want to hit some of the things that are coming up. This Saturday, there's an event at the Asian Pacific Cultural Center for cultural and arts. Next week, we'll be traveling to DC to meet with our elected delegation there with the mayor and deputy mayor. Homeowners Association meeting, or not homeowner, but neighborhood associations in Telecom, Downtown Neighborhood Association in Lake City. On Friday, Puget Sound Regional Council has a mini academy workshop for elected officials on home ownership or home housing workshop. And then on the 16th, we have the youth fishing event. As it relates to some of the comments we've heard, I know that a memo was produced and sent out related to previous meeting and where the legal authorities lie in terms of publicly owned waterbeds versus privately owned waterbeds that extend in, and some of the things that are being requested conflict with that. So I'll turn it over to City Attorney just to kind of walk through some of those components and why, yes, we do fall under the procurement process of the city because we are the ones that are liable under this component.
Oh, sorry about that. Is the microphone on? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was requested to take a look at this issue, and I provided a memorandum to the Lake Management District. And I believe that that memo has been provided for you as well. I will tell you, it took a while to produce this one, and if you've known me for any length of time, this is probably the longest memo I've ever written on a topic, because I usually try to keep it pretty concise, but there are a lot of moving parts and pieces. And I think that I would acknowledge the frustration of anyone who's been involved in it. They're dealing with Department of Ecology, who, when they say something like, go talk to the city, they don't know our process. They don't know whether or not we have a lake management district or what role that district plays. They just know that the city has the permit for the lake. Additionally, we have, I think it's like 17 lakes throughout the city, and at least 2 of them are privately owned as far as property owners owning into the bedlands of the lake. If you own into the bedlands of the lake, you can treat it. If you don't own into the bedlands of the lake and your waters are state waters, you can't privately treat the lake. And so if you're someone trying to get through that process, it gets a little frustrating, because you know that someone on another lake has been able to privately treat their lake, and you know that the Department of Ecology is telling you to go talk to the city, and then you're trying to come to the American Lake Management District. So that's just a little bit of background as to what is kind of going on there. I did speak with a representative from the Department of Ecology. I have spoken with somebody representing the Homeowners Association. I have spoken with staff at Public Works, and I've done a lot of emailing and looking at RCWs and some other things. Bottom line, and we went round and round about this, American Lake is a public lake. There is no part of the lake, regardless of the maps you may find, that have bedlands going to a private property owner. And I did specifically at one point request any documentation anyone had to the contrary. And at that point, it seems like one thing we all agree on now is that American Lake does not in any part belong to the adjacent property owners. That brings you to the issue of the APAM, which is the permit that someone would have to get. An APAM cannot be privately acquired on American Lake because no one privately owns part of the lake. So the current APAM is owned by the city of Lakewood. So once you have that understanding, anyone treating the lake is the city treating the lake. That's it. And so there's not a way to carve out a private treatment program under the public permit. That means that we either can have the city council authorize treatment of the lake, or we can have the district add it to the work plan and bring it to the city council, and in that way have it be the public process, do our RFP or add it to one of our existing contracts or something like that. But it has to follow all of the procurement laws that would apply to the city. And essentially, to do otherwise, because of the way the permitting works, it's kind of carving out sort of a private privilege to not have to follow any of the rules that are attendant to the public permit. And it's frustrating to people who have been in the process this long to be getting that answer. But that really is the answer because of the nature of what the lake is. My ultimate recommendation, and it's a recommendation, I mean, it's not necessarily legally required to do it this way. My recommendation is that they go through our appointed AMLD advisory board, see whether that board would authorize adding it to the work plan and follow the process. Which the other issue here is, at the end of the day, if you've appointed a lake management district board, that board is not required to accept every recommendation that comes to it. They might say, yes, this is something we want to add to the work plan, and we'll assess ourselves accordingly. or seek grant money to pay for it. Or they might say, this is not a project we're going to take on. Essentially, that's why you've appointed a Lake Management District Advisory Board. The alternative is that these folks could come to the city council, and the city council ultimately has authority over the whole thing. And you could skip your appointed board. I can't recommend that as a municipal practitioner. I think if you've appointed people to serve a purpose, it sends a chilling message to say that when people come to you directly, they're going to get to skip the line. I'd be happy.
Ms. Walker.
I'm not going to say I'd be
I
happy,
gue-
but
I
I
guess-
will engage any questions.
I guess the
you have.
question I have is, so this has been going on for several months. Have these people gone to that board?
What I will tell you is that I've gotten mixed answers on that. I did, however, in one of my discussions, say to the person, and they testified to this effect in public comments to you, that this problem has been going on for many, many, many years. And I asked, have you gone to the board previously? The earliest I've heard of anyone going to the board might have been sometime late last year. And I believe that there are emails to the effect of city people encouraging these folks to go to that board. The board makes the work plan at the end of the year and brings it to you in January. And so January 2026 is when they would have brought the work plan to you. I can't answer to what degree. I know they've attended at least one meeting that was recent, and I don't know how effective that meeting was. It got a little crowded, and I'm working with the staff who are helping that board. We are going to be in this room on their next meeting of June 4th and try to kind of restore a little order. There were a lot of people with a lot of ideas in that meeting, and I think sometimes it's challenging if you're a citizen who's been on a board that hasn't had that much action. And I think that's where we're at with that board.
So in the 2026 work plan didn't include anything besides the milfoil treatment is what I'm guessing.
That's true. However, what I can't speak to specifically is exactly what the board was approached with prior to that work plan being made. I talked to our staff that work with that board as recently as today. There is nothing in the minutes or the correspondence that suggests that this was actually brought up as a topic before they made their work plan.
The other question, I think that seeing people out of my left eye here, Councilmember Lauricella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki. If this is something that surely we're able to make this decision as a council, but I agree it makes sense to have it go through that American Lake Management Board. Is it something that we could request as an exception to the work plan process for that board to make a recommendation one way or another and then fast track that through council to make that decision in a sooner way?
My recommendation on that would be that you ask that this be put on their agenda for that June 4th meeting and convey that you would be receptive if their desire is to amend their work plan. However, they may not make that recommendation, but it's not that different than when you get something from the planning board and don't necessarily want to go in the exact same direction, but you would want them to have the freedom to choose what their recommendation is. At least then they've played their role and then the council can play their role.
Absolutely. That was my intent, is to get their recommendation one way or the other.
Right.
So that then we can choose our action. Thank you.
Councilmember Pearson.
Yeah, I would echo Councilmember Lauricella's comments on that. That was one of my, I appreciate the memo. It was, I feel like now I have a full understanding of kind of where things are at, and I'm hoping that other folks do too, because it is a complicated subject. I also do not want this to bypass going through the American Lake board or committee. But I do think that it sounds like there's been some frustrations with the quarterly meeting schedule, and maybe we could usher them to have a special meeting to discuss this issue. I don't know how much else is on their agenda to talk about on their, meeting quarterly. I can imagine that you kind of have your standard stuff that you have to run through, and anything else is like, we don't want to talk about it. So, if they were open to it, I would hope that they could maybe have a separate meeting if they needed to discuss this issue. And I really would like to see the issue well vetted from all sides, and ultimately get a recommendation on, it sounds like they've got a ton of signatures, 150, residences on American Lake, and I go to American Lake on the north side, or the northeast side, I guess. And there's not really that much of an issue with like dirty water and stuff. It's not as apparent, I guess, rather. But whenever we go to this far south side and the far, it starts to get noticeably like some of these pictures. And so it's a much bigger issue depending on where you're at on the lake. And so, if you're talking about, half of the lake, well, it's not an issue to us. We don't want to raise our fees to treat this, but the other half is like, where it's shallower and stuff.
I think that's good comment. I think we're just talking really about, we just need to get informed here. So I think what I'm hearing is that when you have the meeting on June 4th, I mean, what I'm hearing is there's never been a proposal to fix this. So they come to us because the lake, so let's officially get this out in front of the Lake Management Board, give them a shot at this. If they don't do anything with it, let's figure it out about what we want to do. But they don't have any money to do this. If we implement it this year anyway, it goes with the property tax, so they don't have enough money anyway this year to do
I'm
it.
glad you mentioned that, because that is the slight curve to this. This is in some ways, not completely, but I think of this as almost like an LID, but for a lake. So the people who are in the Lake Management District assess themselves in order to pay for what they're doing on the lake, right? If there is additional work, we would either want to talk about, are there grants out there that could help with this? Is there some other way to pay for it that the AMLD could help with? Or are they willing to go through with an assessment? Because you're right, it has to be paid for somehow. And the current assessment is 66 cents a foot on the lake, and that will cover the work that they're currently doing. I would also let the council know, I think this thing exists through 2028. Like June of 2028 is the sunset for this body.
Well, let us know how the meeting on June 4th goes, because I until they officially get that in front of the board, I don't think we should get involved in this, because otherwise we're just bypassing the board. So why do we have the board? So, but I guess we're just hearing about this every week, and it just doesn't, everyone seems to be talking past each other. And I'm confused as heck. I'll tell you, you've helped me more tonight but I realized why we're confused, because everyone's just talking past each other. No one's getting anything on the work plans, and there might not be even agreement about the state of the lake. And these poor folks have problems clearly right in front of their house. So but the meeting in June, let us know how June 4th goes.
We have a clear message from you that you want this on their agenda, so we'll make sure that it happens.
I'm gonna stop. Thanks. Okay. Anything else, Doug?
That's all I have.
Okay. So, council member comments, it's past 10 o'clock. We need to be respectful of people's time. So I'm going to ask you to all keep it to 3 minutes. So council member Lauricella.
All right, I get to feel what it's like to be a public commenter.
Yeah.
Excellent. So last week or the week before, I was invited to attend the state's release of their comprehensive climate action plan in Pierce County and represent the city of Lakewood at a roundtable with a bunch of other electeds. And it was a really good experience to hear where people's priorities are and to be able to share ours. So it was well received. I also attended the Downtown Neighborhood Association meeting and heard about the little pantries in the city to address food insecurities. So it's a great program. I think folks should look into that more. There was also some community input from folks in the room about parks spaces and how they can provide input to what they want in their parks. And I know we just did our whole parks plan that invited people to do that, but these are new voices that weren't there. And they asked about things like perhaps a basketball court over at the Motor Avenue downtown park area or at the old library site. So something to look at, as well as I think maybe Councilmember Branstad will talk to this because he was there too. There are some folks there that were looking for low impact fitness equipment for our elderly as part of their daily routines. They could walk through a park and use that fitness equipment and move on. So running out of time, I'm sure. But Parks Appreciation Day was great. I hit up Harry Todd, Edgewater, Kiwanis, Springbrook, and Wards Lake, and saw people at all of those, and it was really cool. I felt bad showing up just in time for a picture and then running off on one at Springbrook, but I appreciate them making it look like I was working. So that was great. And Wards Lake is amazing, right? It's that park, and I heard other people say it, and I agree. On the east side of that park, it feels like Point Defiance in the 5 Mile Drive. Just all the trees and the space, and it's so clean and nice. And it's now the east side gem of our city, as opposed to Fort Stoughton being the west side. So Opioid Abatement Council last week, got to represent Lakewood and serve as the chair and hear what other cities in our region are doing. Gig Harbor is kind of leading the way. They've hired city staff with their opioid funds, and they've conducted training for all of their people and put Narcan in all city vehicles, which is something I would like to see us consider. And I will talk to our Community Services Advisory Board about that. At the end of the week, I'll be attending a wildfire smoke and heat preparedness workshop with a bunch of other cities in the county. I want to echo the thanks to Councilmember Talbo for helping us with better representation of the folks in our city, which is really important, and I want to see more of that. So thank you for speaking on her behalf. And the last thing, speaking of Councilmember Talbo's comments at our last session, I talked about having an additional meeting occasionally, so we don't have to stay here till 10 o'clock. This is a good time to bring that up, I think. So her proposal was a 4th Monday on months where we have 5 Mondays. And I like that idea. That would be June, August, and November of this year. Something for consideration. That's all I got. My 3 minutes probably took 5, but thank you.
Well, darn close. Councilmember Talbo, the person of the evening tonight.
Well, I guess I will also alternatively propose, I also thought about that afterwards as well. And I thought, well, maybe if we feel that there is more time needed for other meetings, then perhaps on the other 2 Mondays, meeting at 6 o'clock instead of 7, perhaps as an alternative gives us some additional time, but more to continue talking about. Excuse me. On tonight's comments, thank you to Pierce Transit for providing free direct service to the Youth Summit. Although I suspect that out of the cleverness, willingness, and intelligence of our youth council and creativeness, I have a feeling that much of that work was coordinated and spearheaded by them. So I want to give them credit too for coordinating their own youth summit and making it successful, and very much look forward to it next year when we can attend, because we won't have anything conflicting with it. The community collaboration tonight, I have attended one of those meetings before, and I did not know that we have this network. And whatever, I would like to support this group. So whatever we can do to either bring that forward as a point of topic in future exec session or study session, that would be great. I would also encourage I would also encourage you to attend any one of those meetings at any time. It really is a great network of nonprofits and organizations that feed and help Lakewood, our residents, just shine. So thank you to that group. I did RSVP to attend the PSRC housing workshop. So I would also encourage anybody to attend that as well if they can. I attended the last PSRC new council orientation, and it is pretty insightful and helpful in connecting with other cities and city officials, especially on the topic of housing. So I will keep my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess on the PSRC topic, so not exactly City of Lakewood business, but kind of. So there is a bridge funding pilot program, and Pierce County was awarded $7 million for engineering and design for replacement of the Chambers Creek Bridge, which scored particularly well for a number of reasons. But one of the larger ones is that it would be part of a larger Chambers Bay estuary restoration project that would remove the dam and open up the river going up there, Chambers Creek going up there. So would be an absolutely wonderful project, and it sounds like there's some funding available for that, and that is going to move forward. So I think that we do a part of that over there. So would be a huge benefit for Lakewood, UP, Stilicho, and Pierce County. So, and then I heard from a frequent rider of the 574 route that she had a lot of concerns about the route being canceled, and she works for one of the airline, or I guess not one of the airlines, but she's one of the baggage handlers folks. But there's a lot of people, and the bus is like nearly packed in the early mornings and then in the afternoons when folks are getting off of work. But she brought up the concern that, and she's worked for the airport for like 30 years. She starts her work at 3:30. Well, the 574 bus is the only one that's running at those hours. And so if they take away the 574 bus, then there's a lot of work, there's a lot of employees that are relying on that to get to work. And so that creates significant challenges for them. She said if they get rid of that bus route, I just don't know what I'm going to do. The next available bus route is at 5:30 in the morning, and that's 2 hours past my, start time. And so he doesn't really have any answers for that. So I spoke to the mayor about potentially including some concerns about this in our letter to Pierce Transit. But I think that this is a really important issue. And, if they're looking to cut the bus route, maybe consider removing some of the midday routes, but keeping the early morning when there's no other buses operating, at that time to do that. It's one thing to remove a service or delay a service, but if there's no other option, then that's a significant impact. And so anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Brandstetter.
Well, I'll echo Councilmember Pearson's comments about the value of the 574 road as it now runs and the dependence of many people upon it. It primarily serves people going to work, not people going to the airport to go further. I attended the SHAPE Executive Board meeting. It was their discussion about their 2027 budget. And they are one of the organizations that looks to approve their budget early summer in June or July, because their budget then has to be referred and approved by the city councils of all the members that are there to be able to go and do that. And it's not a huge budget, but I would tell you that the budget that we'll probably see in July, where we'll be asked to pass a resolution saying we support it, which means we will incorporate it into our budget, is they're proposing that all the municipalities, including Lakewood, have a 12% increase in our cost. But that is somewhat because of staffing turmoil, they've ended up having a budget balance at the end of the year, and so they've been using that instead of increasing fees to legislation. But in order to begin to do some other projects that involve using fund balance, They are proposing a 12% increase for 2027, a 10% increase in 2028, an 8% increase in 2029, 4% increase in 2030, and a 2% increase in 2031 is in order to be able to make room in their budget for some special projects that would have benefits to housing in the area. So that'll be coming to it. Now, the bottom line, when I say 12%, that means that, you know, our 2027 thing would be 25,000, 25K. You know, this is not a huge amount, but it is going to be progressive to where we will get to 50K in 5 years to be able to go and do that. And so that will be coming. The public comments that we heard today, the one that was most distressing to me was the one that lasted 15 seconds of the person who was not a resident, but said, you know, you have developed a reputation of a city that passes rules, but doesn't enforce them. And I'm glad I don't live here. And she went away. Okay. I think that there is some occasional truth to that, but and it was disappointing to hear.
Thank you, Councilmember Brandstetter. Councilmember Lindholm, please. Oh, and I'll talk to you later.
Really thankful for the public comment tonight. It's robust as it usually is. Really am glad to have the information on American Lake. Thank you, Ms. Walker, for that. I would appreciate some follow-up from staff, doesn't have to be tonight, on the proposed or the suggested lack of enforcement on tree code. As we all know, a laws, you know, without teeth is just a suggestion. I don't necessarily think that's happening here, but I'd love to hear more so I can be more informed as a council member. And same thing on animal control. I don't know exactly how the department works, how it's staffed. I'd love to hear more about that. One potential segue from the Sister City trip is looking at possibly incorporating a Zen garden into one of our park projects. That's not only great for Gimhe, it also could be a nice conversation starter for some of our other sister cities. So I think getting some input there as it makes sense to do so would be a really powerful thing. I agree with Councilmember Pearson on the 574, having just taken it for the first time. It's fast, it's efficient, it's $3. If we can keep that in place for the community, I think it'd be powerful. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to the Youth Council and their report. It's always very informative and great to hear from them. I love that they get up to the podium and speak to us. I think it really does a lot for them, so I appreciate that. Also, the proclamation today, great. Yes, our superstar today in representation, Councilmember Talbot. So I identify with the representation part, and I think that it's very good that it's brought up, and I appreciate your presence here. So thank you. And I was about the community collaboration. There is a network of resources. They are online. So it's one way for people to start to get information out. I think what would be good for us is if maybe we started promoting it more, letting people know that these are the resources that are online. So however that gets promoted out would be really great. So the community knows that these are here. And that might just be a start to the community collaboration and getting information about the human services and what is available. I know there's more conversation on all of that to come. And then tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, but on Wednesday, I will be going to the Community and Schools in Lakewood breakfast. So that is in the morning on Wednesday. So it'll be great to see everybody, some people that will be there. And then finally, yes, I spoke a little bit about the trip to Gimhe. It was amazing. And I really think that we're going to have a lot of collaboration, a lot of opportunity to bring things back to from Korea to here and continue to grow our sister cities relationships. There's a lot of really great ideas. And like we had mentioned, we met with some key people that are key decision makers, and love how we could possibly loop in more partnerships here in Lakewood. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bell. I'll just go back to Parks Appreciation Day in Wards Lake. I got to play mayor, so that means I didn't get my hands dirty at all. Just like above the fray, but the Wards Lake thing was a lot of fun. I have to admit, I've never been in that park. I think I drove in the parking lot one time and then just drove out. It's incredible. Met a family there, and the dad and the two kids and the mom, and they were using the pump track, and they came from Puyallup, right? So that's exactly what they want. I'm just really impressed about how that park, but I got to walk the rest of it. So thank you. We had the FN walk, our Emergency Food Network walk on Saturday. Made some opening remarks there. Great partner. A lot of folks there in a beautiful park, and they used the stage, the gathering place, as their kind of central area. That's where they made their announcements. They had a band there. Just a really good event. Of course, the weather was great. The Communities and Schools breakfast, I still got room on my table. I have to admit that I may just show up very quickly. Mayor, the thing again, are you going? Okay, I'll let Holly know. Oh, you are, okay. And so, but you're at ours, I think. So great, it's a good event. So the Sound Transit letter I'm still working on. My editor didn't like it. They found fault with some of the things I had said. I really, and I'm trying to get the bus thing in there, but I don't know that it's gonna happen. I think maybe we should write a separate bus one, because the bus one really is locked in. I mean, this thing is, it sounds like when I talked to the executive Mello, I mean, and we talked about the letter itself and just trying to tell you about they made that decision just at the drop of a hat, right? As soon as the stuff went to Federal Way, it was like, okay, the bus is going to Federal Way. And it was like, well, okay, but there can be some issues with that, right? And so, but apparently they have done a really good job of really selling it. So I think we probably need a separate letter about the 574, different than the one that we're saying like, hey, so hopefully the letter will be done and out here pretty soon. A lot of good work tonight. Thank you very much for everybody. And then next, who's not going to be here next week? Two people told me, Tristan and Mike. Yeah, okay. Study session, and we've got 4 or 5 items. The big item is we have somebody coming from out of town to discuss potentially bringing a baseball team in, so to the city. And they'll need some, to discuss that. And so they're going to make a short presentation, and then you get your opportunity to ask questions. And there'll be, I think, other opportunities to discuss things, but things are moving along in that regard. So with that, I'm going